You're listening to Fanfiction Reader, where stories come alive through sound. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the tale.
121 Section 121 He only smiled slightly and stretched out a hand. A finger was already blocking Homelander's path. Homelander's power was incredibly terrifying, capable of shattering mountains with a single punch, but it was blocked by Zhu Fu's finger. After so easily blocking Homelander's attack, Zhu Fu slowly opened his mouth and said, "You don't even have the strength to hit someone, and you call yourself a superhero? I think you're not even as good as a beggar on the street." As Zhu Fu's voice fell, he pushed with his finger and then flicked it forward. Homelander only felt a terrifying power emerging from his fist, and his entire arm was directly cursed. "Shit!" Homelander suddenly took a few steps back, holding his arm and sucking in cold air. Perhaps feeling that this was detrimental to his image, Homelander clenched his fist, put his hand behind his back, and looked at Zhu Fu head-on. However, everyone could see that he was putting on a brave face. You should know that this battle was not only being watched by these two people. The most concerned about this battle was none other than Magneto and Charles, who were recuperating near Zhu Fu and had noticed something was wrong. Seeing Homelander suffer so much, Magneto directly shouted excitedly, "Good! Well done!" Tears flickered in the corners of Magneto's eyes. He had finally seen the hope of Homelander being taken down. Zhu Fu's strength really did not disappoint. Zhu Fu was really too strong, even stronger than before. He had experienced Homelander's terrifying power. That was the power capable of breaking free from the most hard metal in the world. This kind of power, in front of Zhu Fu, was like a child, without any ability to resist. Magneto was really too excited. Apart from Magneto, the expressions of the other people observing this scene were different. Like Nick Fury of SHELD, there was a hint of lingering fear in his eyes. He had previously wanted to secretly target Zhu Fu. Fortunately, he didn't do it. This guy, Zhu Fu, was really too strong. Homelander, who was called irresistible by the SHELD agents, seemed to have no ability to resist in front of Zhu Fu. SHELD's decision to befriend him was indeed very wise. Director Fury wasn't the only one with this kind of thought. Even the two lords of the world, Ancient One and Odin, felt that Zhu Fu's current power was already far beyond ordinary people. It was already enough for them to value him. 8. Chapter 75 Your laser vision is not authentic. Try my heat vision. Subscription requested! Zhu Fu didn't know that his battle had so many viewers. Even if he knew, he would only smile indifferently. He didn't need to use many trump cards to deal with Homelander, and he had many methods. Homelander was designed according to Superman's template. This was Vought Corporation's original intention in researching Compound V to create superhumans. Zhu Fu planned to use Superman's abilities himself. To completely crush him. To kill, one must strike at the heart. Looking at Homelander standing there, as if he didn't dare to come up, a faint smile appeared on the corner of Zhu Fu's mouth. This faint smile, in Homelander's eyes, was like a devil. "What's wrong? Don't dare to come up. Didn't you say before that you were invincible?" It turns out that Vought Corporation's Homelander is just a clown who talks big. Zhu Fu spoke softly, but in Homelander's ears, it was like a thunderclap. If his superhero facade was exposed, he found it hard to imagine whether he could accept that scene. He didn't care on the surface. In fact, Homelander had endured a lot of things for this. It could be said that this was the thing that Homelander valued most, apart from his life. Zhu Fu had hit his weak spot. "You must die today." Homelander almost said these words through gritted teeth. The whole person rushed towards Zhu Fu like a rocket. He used Superman's classic move. He was obviously planning to hug Zhu Fu and directly press him to the ground. Superman often used this move to attack. It's just that the attack power is basically equivalent to nothing. Those who can withstand Superman's fists don't care about this little bit of strike, and those who can't withstand it don't need it at all. It's okay for Homelander to use this move to deal with people weaker than him, but it has no effect on people who are stronger than him. When he rushed to Zhu Fu's side, he realized the gap between his and Zhu Fu's power was not just a little bit. Even with the terrifying power of the impact, it still had no effect at all. Zhu Fu was like an old reef in the sea. No matter how the wind and waves beat, he remained unmoved. "Homelander, have you been watching too many movies? Do you really think this kind of move is useful?" Without saying a word, Zhu Fu smashed an elbow at Homelander. Elbow strikes are very effective moves in fighting, and their power is very great. Much more terrifying than fists. Crack. Zhu Fu's elbow strike directly transmitted the sound of bone shattering from Homelander's body. Visible ripples spread around them as the center. Zhu Fu didn't hesitate at all and smashed downwards again. Homelander could no longer maintain this posture and his arms unconsciously released. Zhu Fu took a step back and directly delivered a whip kick. Homelander was like a meteorite, smashing towards the ground. Boom! Next to where Zhu Fu was fishing was a forest. And at this moment, a cloud of smoke rose from this forest. All the trees within a range of nearly 1,000 meters around collapsed to the ground, leaving only various debris. Section 122 on the ground, only a large pit remained, with countless cracks radiating outwards from the pit's center. Each crack was a meter or two wide, like a series of ravines. Homelander was lying in the center of this pit at this moment. His expression was as if he were Loki after being smashed on the ground by Hulk countless times. This was still the result of Zhu Fu holding back. If that blow had landed on Homelander's neck, Homelander would have been crippled even if he didn't die. Homelander probably hasn't really learned how to fight until now. He doesn't know any of the weaknesses of the human body. Or rather, he has become accustomed to the strength of his body, and ordinary humans simply cannot pose any threat to him. Unfortunately, Zhu Fu is not an ordinary human. Zhu Fu fell from the sky, quietly looking at Homelander. You are just a mindless test subject, relying only on the strength of your body, yet you don't understand that the most powerful thing about humans is their intelligence. Zhu Fu's eyes were extremely calm. Homelander's eyes were filled with grief and disbelief. Red energy constantly wandered under his body, repairing his physical injuries. Everything about me is stronger than you. What can you use to fight me? Having lost the advantage of your so-called power, what are you still worth? Zhu Fu kept speaking. His words were like sharp weapons stabbing towards Homelander. Hearing these words, Homelander felt unease, pain, disbelief, and confusion in his heart. Various emotions intertwined in his heart. Seeing his expression, Zhu Fu understood. Homelander had already begun to break down. This is the horror of Joker, keenly perceiving the weaknesses of the soul and directly targeting the human heart. However, Zhu Fu's most fundamental aspect is still the power from Superman's body. Only with the support of power can his words have enough strength. The two cooperate with each other to unleash power far beyond the ordinary. Under Zhu Fu's stimulation, Homelander directly lost his mind. The injuries in his body were completely repaired. Reaching out and slapping downwards, he flew directly into the air. Damn it! Homelander's face was covered in dust. That gorgeous armor was also tattered under Zhu Fu's attack. Coupled with Homelander's gloomy expression, he really looks like a demon. Die! Homelander glared. Red laser beams shot out from his eyes directly towards Zhu Fu. Zhu Fu's body flashed and his whole person became illusory. This was not because Zhu Fu's body had really become transparent, but because his speed was too fast, directly forming a huge phantom in the air. Homelander's laser attack couldn't keep up with his movements for a moment. This feeling made Homelander even more irritable. This feeling was even more uncomfortable for Homelander than directly defeating him. Can you only hide? Homelander roared angrily. Homelander's eyes fired laser beams, and the ground was directly destroyed. The ground directly turned into a scorched lava field. This terrifying power didn't seem like it belonged to a human at all. Zhu Fu, however, strolled leisurely through it. It was clearly a battle, but he seemed very elegant and composed. It was as if this wasn't a battle, but a game. It's not that I can only hide, but that your power is too weak to pose any threat to me at all, Zhu Fu said, stopping directly. Homelander was overjoyed. 2 red laser beams shot towards Zhu Fu. This was energy sufficient to melt metal and cut the most terrifying substances in the world. It not only had the high-temperature characteristics of energy, but also the impact of a force attack. It could be said, this was a very perfect and powerful attack. Its lethality to living things was extremely terrifying. Zhu Fu, however, didn't dodge at all, letting Homelander's attack hit him. Homelander's face revealed a cruel expression. He seemed to see Zhu Fu being cut apart by the terrifying power, begging for mercy under his hands. But soon he discovered the flaw. Zhu Fu stood still, letting the scorching rays hit him, as if they had no effect on him. This is impossible. Why don't you have any reaction at all? Homelander shouted in disbelief. Zhu Fu now looked like Superman being struck by Steppenwolf's axe. A strange smile appeared on his face. With a stretch of his hand, the casual clothes on his upper body turned directly into pieces on the ground, revealing his incredibly strong upper body. Unfortunately, Homelander's laser beams, which were enough to melt gold and cut iron, did not pose any threat to him. His skin was only slightly red, but there was no effect at all. You ask why? Because you are too weak, Zhu Fu said indifferently. I don't believe it. You die for me. Homelander was very angry. In the next second, he unleashed the laser energy in his eyes to the maximum extent. Homelander had a strong control over his abilities. All of his energy went to his eyes. The power of that deep red, terrifying light instantly doubled. Under this output power, Homelander felt his eye sockets were a little hot. I don't believe you won't die like this. Homelander thought in his heart. The deep red laser beam directly smashed into Zhu Fu's body. Section 123. However, the laws of the physical world do not shift based on a person's will. Or rather, Homelander is not powerful enough to interfere with reality using willpower. The red thermal ray directly hit Zhu Fu's body, but it did not leave any trace. On the contrary, the surrounding trees and land suffered. The trees burned and the land melted, as if this place had opened the gate to hell. You see, your power is not as strong as you think, is it? Zhu Fu pointed to the cooling ground next to him, with a smile on his face. Homelander was a little doubtful of life. If it weren't for the terrifying melting marks on the surrounding ground, Homelander would even think that his power had failed. But since it hasn't failed, why isn't Zhu Fu affected at all? Is his body really that strong? Even he himself would be injured if he received such a terrifying attack. Homelander couldn't believe it and didn't understand why. He even had great doubts about his decades of life. Could it be that his previous life experiences were just illusions? I guess you are doubting life now. I will help you solve your doubts. Let you know what is truly terrifying power. Zhu Fu smiled slightly. He leaned forward, an orange red light appeared in his eyes. Superman's power and Homelander's power, although they appear the same, are actually two completely different powers. Superman's power is thermal ray, emitting an extremely hot beam of light that melts everything, which is a manifestation of the sun's terrifying power. Homelander's power is more like a laser beam. This is a high-frequency oscillating energy beam, which increases the emphasis on cutting performance, and the resulting thermal ray damage is only incidental. But when Zhu Fu's thermal ray temperature is high enough, the difference between the two is not that great. When Homelander saw Zhu Fu move, he noticed something was wrong. He quickly descended and wanted to dodge. The orange-red thermal ray in Zhu Fu's eyes had already spurted out. His rays were indeed like spurts. After the power was strengthened, Zhu Fu's thermal ray shot out like a substantial lava eruption. Whether it was the power or the terrifying power, it was not comparable to before. Homelander flashed and dodged quickly. Zhu Fu's gaze followed him like a shadow. The orange-red beam of light swept directly across the ground. In front of this terrifying energy, the ground directly cracked. The soil directly melted. In the blink of an eye, these soils directly melted into lava, and a gully appeared on the ground instantly. The wood had already evaporated directly before it burned in the face of this high temperature. The metal had long since turned into liquid and merged with the lava. Homelander trembled when he saw this scene. He could be sure that even with his current physical fitness, he would be crippled if he took this blow. The thing emitted from Zhu Fu's eyes was not a beam of light at all. It was like a high-temperature plasma constantly exploding and fusing, which was hotter than light. Homelander didn't dare to stop it at all. After these few laps, the surroundings turned into a sea of lava. Zhu Fu floated in midair like a human cannon, constantly attacking. That posture is like a cat playing with a mouse, frantically playing with its prey. Everyone who saw the scene was silent. Magneto was silent. He can indeed destroy a city, but controlling metal is not comparable to Zhu Fu's terrifying destructive power at all. His power is more like manipulation, and even if it is terrifying, there are traces to follow. Zhu Fu's lethality, however, began to completely transcend and seemed to reach another level. This power seems to be born purely for destruction. Nick Fury of SHIELD frowned. He was considering whether they could subdue Zhu Fu if he lost his mind. He finally found in frustration. Even if the Avengers desperately tried, their SHIELD had no way to deal with Zhu Fu at all. This is a super high-tech humanoid combat machine. One person's firepower is probably comparable to the explosion of all nuclear weapons in the world. Evaporating a city is also easy. This mountain has turned into a sea of lava. This power is really terrifying. Ancient One, who was observing with magic, also sighed. Zhu Fu's strength also exceeded his expectations. His power has reached the limit of mortals. Taking another step up, I am afraid that he will be able to contact their stage and become a truly powerful human god. It can even become an existence that protects a civilization of 10.8. Zhu Fu's power reminded Ancient One of the great inferno who once ran out of hell. The surrounding fire can turn a city directly into a sea of lava. At this age, he has such terrifying strength. Ancient One can only sigh. This rising star is indeed a bit amazing. If someone in Camertage could have this kind of strength, Ancient One would feel that he had burned incense. It's a pity. This kind of thing can only exist in fantasy. Ancient One was very emotional. Odin, who was far away in the universe outside Earth, was also filled with emotion. He and Ancient One are both knowledgeable characters. Millions of years of life have allowed him to see too many outstanding geniuses in this universe. It's just that Zhu Fu's level of genius is still rare in the world. Just now, Zhu Fu's powerful power was like the Fire King's Surtur, invincible. Odin looked at Zhu Fu and thought about his silly son. Suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. If Thor had half the excellence of this kid, he wouldn't be so worried. Section 124 between them. It wasn't just a gap in power, but also a gap in intelligence. Both Sky Father-level powerhouses were sighing with emotion. Not to mention the Earthling. Zhu Fu's performance could no longer be described as human, but a being that completely surpassed human. Calling him god of the human world was not an exaggeration. Magneto, through the perspective shared by the mutant in front of him, looked at Zhu Fu's figure floating in the sky. He felt a burst of rejoicing in his heart. Fortunately, Zhu Fu was a mutant. Fortunately, Zhu Fu was on their side. Otherwise, they really wouldn't know how to face such an enemy. This kind of powerful existence was like a god descending upon this world. Just looking at him would make one feel fear. God of the human world, the name was truly deserved. Chapter 76, Killing People and Punishing Their Hearts. One punch to kill Homelander? Seeking subscriptions! To a certain extent. Superman was even more terrifying than a true god. Even in the Silver Age, his abilities had already exceeded the limits of what mortals could understand. Superman was originally a product of human imagination to the extreme. In comparison, Homelander was a bit lacking. Even in the Marvel Universe, because of various reasons, his abilities had been considerably strengthened, but it was absolutely impossible for him to be Zhu Fu's opponent. It could be seen from the somewhat terrified expression on Homelander's face. Homelander had never been a true powerhouse. A powerhouse thinks about how to overcome difficulties when facing them, while Homelander thinks about how to escape. Facing such a powerful Zhu Fu, Homelander already had the intention to retreat. There's no need to fight this mutant bastard with my life, Homelander thought in his heart. Escaping from Zhu Fu's hands, Homelander stabilized himself and looked at Zhu Fu, opening his mouth to say, "You mutant trash. I'm not in a good state today, I'll come again another day." Saying that, Homelander soared into the sky, fleeing in a sorry state. Looking at his posture, he wished he could have another pair of wings on his back. "Come if you want, leave if you want, dream on," Zhu Fu sneered. His body flashed instantly. The next moment, he appeared above Homelander's head. "Get down here for me." Zhu Fu revealed a fierce look and directly punched Homelander with force. Homelander flew downwards at a speed even faster than before. Before he even reached the ground, the violent airflow had already blown onto the ground. Zhu Fu didn't just let him go that easily. His body flashed. The next moment, he appeared again beneath Homelander's body. Without saying a word, he raised his leg and kicked. Homelander was like a ball, kicked away again by Zhu Fu. Homelander wanted to rely on his powerful flight ability to stop, but his energy was not enough to withstand the terrifying kinetic energy brought by Zhu Fu. His whole person flew uncontrollably towards the sky. Zhu Fu was like he had obtained a new toy. His figure constantly flickered. In the sky, it seemed like 10 or so Zhu Fu appeared at the same time. This was because his speed was too fast, leaving afterimages in midair. And Homelander was tragically in the middle, being kicked around by Zhu Fu like a ball. Bang! 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 Before long, Homelander was beaten until his nose was bruised and his face was swollen, his whole body covered in bruises. Homelander's physical fitness was indeed very strong, but Zhu Fu's power was also very terrifying. It was only natural that Homelander was beaten into a pig's head. Originally, Homelander, although there was some gloominess on his face, but among humans, he could be considered a handsome guy. But, under Zhu Fu's heavy blows, he had now completely turned into a pig's head. His face was swollen high, his eyes became a small slit, looking very wretched, completely without the invincible posture he had just had. "Homelander, looks like you're not as strong as you said you were. In the end, you're just an experiment of the Vought Corporation. You wouldn't not know that you were actually created by someone, would you?" Zhu Fu's slightly mocking voice rang out. Hearing it in Homelander's ears, it was like a thunderbolt. In fact, Homelander had long had some doubts about his own background. Even though the Vought Corporation had concealed it in many ways, with his authority, he was clear about a lot of information. It was just that he was unwilling to believe it. He knew everything, but he was unwilling to face it. Now, Zhu Fu's words were like a sharp knife, directly piercing into his heart. Homelander felt the anger that emerged from the bottom of his heart. The last time this kind of anger appeared was on the night he was deceived by that she and personally killed her. Now, he had that kind of anger again. The anger of the weak can only be laughable in the eyes of the strong. Homelander, in the strict sense, cannot be considered a weakling. He also has mutant genes in his body. As everyone knows, the more the mutant race explodes, the more powerful they become, like Scarlet Witch after blackening. Even killed the entire Illuminati, and almost killed the entire Avengers. She wasn't that terrifying when she fought Thanos. even if Homelander's potential is far less than Scarlet Witch's. But when it erupts, it is still very terrifying. Enough. Homelander's face became very distorted. Red energy appeared in his chest, as if a bright light had been lit inside his chest cavity. Not only that, red veins constantly emerged from under his skin, lighting up his skin. Section 125. The injuries on his body even began to heal under these circumstances. He returned to normal in a moment. Zhu Fu, on the other hand, was flying in the sky, watching Homelander's actions with his arms crossed, with absolutely no intention of stopping him. Homelander looked up at Zhu Fu, his eyes full of hatred. "I will let you regret saying those words." When Homelander said this, the words gnashing his teeth could hardly describe it. "Is that so? You can try." Zhu Fu smiled indifferently. His current state of mind was like Superman meeting Steppenwolf, truly laughable. The disregard in Zhu Fu's eyes deeply stung Homelander even more. For an arrogant person, nothing is more painful than this kind of disregard. "Ah!" Homelander directly let out an angry roar. His chest suddenly shone to the extreme. In the next moment, a torrent of red energy spewed out from his chest. This was a reckless, uncontrollable release of energy. The light emitted by the red energy riptide could be seen even tens of thousands of kilometers away. The clouds in the sky were torn apart by this terrifying light and then evaporated. The red light, like a sharp sword, cut through the sky and shot directly into outer space. Homelander now was simply like a huge laser turret, wantonly squandering his energy. However, Zhu Fu, who was hit by the light, had no reaction at all. The ordinary clothes around him had long been directly evaporated, but the black battle suit around him, that energy riptide, which could melt everything, did not cause any impact when it hit Zhu Fu's body. He floated in the sky as usual, with a faint smile on his face. "This is impossible," Homelander shouted frantically. He didn't believe that his attack, which exceeded his own strength limit, couldn't break through his defense at all. Homelander gritted his teeth. The energy in his chest increased again. An even more terrifying and horrifying energy riptide spewed out. That few-meter-wide energy riptide doubled in energy again, and the energy contained in it was even more terrifying. However, this increase in energy still had no impact on Zhu Fu. Zhu Fu just stood in the energy riptide and patted his chest. Just during that terrifying energy riptide, he walked towards Homelander step by step. Homelander's eyes widened, and he was stunned. He could only fully stimulate the energy in his chest, squeezing the energy of every cell in his body, making the energy riptide spewing from his chest even more terrifying. But this still had no impact on Zhu Fu at all. He just walked forward step by step, as if the energy riptide next to him was like a breeze to him. A look of fear appeared in Homelander's eyes. His body was trembling a little. Without any momentum, the energy erupting from his body also slowly disappeared. You are simply a monster," Homelander said with a trembling voice. And Zhu Fu had already walked up to him at this moment. He reached out and directly grabbed Homelander's neck. "Monster? No, I'm not a monster. Those who lose their human form for the sake of power are monsters. For example, you." Zhu Fu lifted Homelander up. At this moment, Homelander no longer had the arrogant momentum he usually had. Instead, he was like those people he usually killed. He could only struggle weakly. His hands wanted to take Zhu Fu's hand away, but he was simply powerless. "I am Homelander. I can't die." Homelander roared angrily. His whole person turned into a red sun. Disordered energy erupted too brightly. A second round of red scorching sun seemed to appear in the sky, covering up the light of the sun. Even human giant cities would probably have no resistance in the face of this energy eruption. But this powerful power had no impact on Zhu Fu at all, and not even a strand of his hair was messed up. "No, everyone will die. You are no exception." Zhu Fu's eyes turned amber, and the powerful mental energy and powerful power in his body began to work in sync. At Homelander's level, ordinary attacks are already difficult to kill him. Injuries that would be fatal to ordinary humans have no impact on Homelander at all. Suffocation cannot affect this kind of Superman either. Zhu Fu chose a simpler method. Directly physically transcend him, crushing his bones and scattering his ashes. A terrifying power burst out from his hand. Homelander's neck simply couldn't bear this terrifying power, and it twisted directly, and the cervical spine was directly broken. It's just that under this circumstance, Homelander still didn't die. The injuries on his body seemed to have no impact on him at all. And Zhu Fu didn't intend to kill him so simply. This was just to prevent him from struggling. Throwing Homelander away, Zhu Fu took a deep breath. His fist retracted to his waist. Then he punched out. An incomparably terrifying power burst out directly from his fist. A violent airflow, centered on him, spread out towards the distance. Section 126. Visible white trails appeared in the sky. The distant mountains were directly evaporated by this terrifying power. If viewed from outer space, one could see that Xu Fu's punch directly left a tens of thousands of kilometers long mark on the ground. The clouds in the sky were directly split open. As for his target, Homelander, he remained motionless and fell into silence. Still not as good as teacher Saitama. Xu Fu shook his head. With a dissatisfied sigh, Xu Fu slowly turned around and left step by step. And Homelander behind him began to shatter. Homelander was as if Thanos had snapped his fingers with the Infinity Stones just on him. His entire being was like a sand-cast sculpture, slowly disintegrating grain by grain, dispersing with the wind. And the restraints had long since run away to who knows how far. The audience who saw this scene were silent. Xu Fu's kind of powerful power can't be considered human at all anymore. Those who didn't see it simply don't understand how shocking it was. Even Nick Fury, who was observing through satellites, was silent. Having seen Captain Marvel, he originally thought that nothing in this world could surprise him. Now it seems that his knowledge is still lacking. Xu Fu's punch directly shattered his dreams of so many years. He used to think that through human effort, Earth could be protected and all enemies could be defeated. After seeing Xu Fu take action, the beliefs he had built up over decades were shaken. Is this really a power that humans can resist? Not to mention Xu Fu, but seeing Homelander's energy torrent that cut through the sky, he felt a sense of being unable to stop it. This is not a power that humans should have at all. Nick Fury, a fighter who had never admitted defeat in his life, felt despair at this moment. Silently sitting in the shadows of his chair for more than 10 minutes, Nick Fury adjusted his mindset. We should befriend him now. Plus, he's originally a part of humanity, so there shouldn't be any problems. But Tony Stark's side should speed up the progress. Nick Fury had previously provided resources to Tony Stark and Dr. Banner to complete their plan, to create a power that can protect humanity. Now it seems that this kind of support is not enough. They need more information, more knowledge. Even knowledge that doesn't come from Earth. This Homelander was stopped by Xu Fu and then killed. What if Xu Fu becomes the next Homelander? Nick Fury made a decision secretly in his heart. Compared to Nick Fury, those who were instigating in the dark were a little uneasy. Who could have imagined that Xu Fu would be so strong? Even using humanity's strongest nuclear weapons still had no effect on him. What if he comes looking for them? Many people secretly fell into despair. Compared to these guys hiding in the background, Ancient One was much calmer. Xu Fu is certainly powerful, but he is not her opponent for the time being. What is the concept of Skyfather? That is a being that has completely transcended humanity and become another level of existence. If Ancient One wanted to, she could even easily destroy Earth. Like Dormammu, Earth is nothing more than food to him. This is the Skyfather level existence, a god in the true sense. Xu Fu is not enough now. However, being stronger than Xu Fu doesn't mean Ancient One wasn't surprised. The strength Xu Fu showed really shocked her. She is indeed stronger than Xu Fu. But how old is she? Even if she can't compare to old things like Odin who have lived for millions of years, she has lived for hundreds of years. Xu Fu is still a child. Ancient One has experienced countless hardships and learned countless magic to reach this level. Xu Fu fishes all day long and often gets skunked. What a difference. With Xu Fu's terrifying talent, it's really uncertain what level he can reach in the future. This is what shocked Ancient One. At this age, to have this kind of terrifying combat power. It seems that I can contact this young man in the future. This young man's nature is not bad. Ancient One thought to herself. She is not the only one who has this idea. Far away in Asgard, Odin, who was watching Xu Fu through magic, had the same idea. Looking at Xu Fu's extremely powerful power, Odin couldn't help but sigh. Xu Fu and him when he was young are really no different. Arrogant, powerful, can be completely called a god-level existence. He became the overlord of the universe, leading Asgard on expeditions to the east and west, and laid down a vast territory. Now he is old and frail and is about to enter the end of his life. Xu Fu has just begun. Odin couldn't help but feel a little old and late. However, he quickly threw this idea out of his head. Xu Fu is so powerful, if he can handle the relationship with Thor well, maybe he will be a great help in the future. Maybe, at some point, Thor will receive his help. Odin decided to observe Xu Fu carefully in the future to see if this kid is worth letting Thor associate with him. He can completely befriend him at that time. When Thor really has a problem, Xu Fu may be a life-saving straw. Lightning flashed in Odin's eyes, pregnant with incredible wisdom. The great king of the Nine Realms believes that Xu Fu's future is limitless. The thoughts of other people can be seen. Xu Fu became famous all over the world at once. Section 127, Chapter 77. The curtain falls. Reckoning after the autumn. Seeking subscriptions! The storms and stresses of the outside world have nothing to do with Zhu Fu. With his style, he wouldn't care about other people's opinions. The key is that after dealing with Homelander, he still has other things to deal with. That is Vought Corporation behind Homelander. Homelander poses no threat to him, but Vought Corporation is different. Who knows what methods these people are preparing behind the scenes to deal with him? This is the Marvel Universe, and crazy scientists might really cause trouble. Not to mention him as he is now. Even Superman in his golden age could potentially crash in this world if he was reckless. After all, the upper limit of the Marvel Universe is the one above all, and below that, there are beings like the Living Tribunal, these legendary gods. This makes Zhu Fu have to be wary. To ensure his safety, he must first take action to settle accounts with these people. But these things are also troublesome. It's not cost-effective for me to do it myself. And if I take action, it will definitely cause even bigger trouble. Zhu Fu thought in his heart. The higher-ups in the Marvel Universe are not as rational as those in his world. Zhu Fu doesn't want to guess what's in the minds of the big shots in this world. After all, they've become high-level members of the World Security Council, yet they still want to join Hydra and try to rule the world. Could they do such a thing without something seriously wrong with their brains? The level of power in the Marvel Universe is very high, but it also increases the ambition of the politicians in this world. They regard all strong people as a threat. Nick Fury is a good example. Zhu Fu is now not only smart, but also proficient in human nature. Vought Corporation is able to act so recklessly against mutants, there must be even higher level figures behind it. If he takes action again, he will definitely be able to solve the problem, but there will also be after effects. What if these people throw a nuclear bomb here? In the Marvel Universe, there are madmen who dare to throw nuclear bombs at Manhattan. He is not afraid of nuclear bombs now, but in the future, this fishing pond probably won't be usable, and this is just one kind of trouble. These people are indeed helpless against Zhu Fu, but they still have the ability to make you feel uncomfortable. Zhu Fu is most annoyed by these things. Violence is the last resort. Now it's good, Joker's neural network is really going to come in handy. Using it in battle is just a waste. Manipulating people's hearts is what Joker is good at. Zhu Fu thought in his heart. Joker is a high IQ talent appointed by DC. But this is not the most terrifying thing about him. The most terrifying thing is his terrible insight into people's hearts, which can easily distort people's minds. Even Batman has been distorted by Joker's power. Very terrible. Now Zhu Fu is just right to use it to compete with these behind-the-scenes people. Let them know what real terror is. Furthermore, he doesn't know who the controller and the person behind Vought are. It's too troublesome to investigate further. Zhu Fu is too lazy to go. Fortunately, he has a way to achieve this goal. Zhu Fu returned to the beach and used his own means to notify Magneto. His remaining methods need to be completed by this mutant. He believes that Magneto must now hate to devour Vought Corporation alive. Zhu Fu only needs to give him some information and let him do this thing. Zhu Fu didn't wait here for a long time before Magneto pushed Charles over here. When they saw Zhu Fu, the expressions on their faces were still very strange. Completely unlike ordinary people, as if looking at some rare animal. Their eyes were full of surprise and disbelief. "Professor, why are you looking at me with such eyes?" Zhu Fu said with a faint smile. "It's nothing, just a little surprised. At your age, you've achieved this achievement and are still here so calmly. It's really not easy." Charles couldn't help shaking his head. When he was young, he couldn't be considered a good person either. He recklessly read other people's thoughts, indulged in alcohol and women, and did a lot of bad things. If it were him when he was young, possessing such terrifying strength as Zhu Fu, he would definitely be more flamboyant. It is impossible to be as low-key as Zhu Fu. Zhu Fu possesses a calmness that is completely inconsistent with his age. Zhu Fu smiled upon hearing this and said plainly, "It's just that I don't like it. I have always been doing what I like. Achieving this kind of thing cannot be regarded as my wish." Naturally, there is nothing surprising about it. Charles nodded. Perhaps this is the pattern. Compared to Charles's casual conversation, Magneto was much more uncomfortable. After being the leader of the mutants for so many years, he really didn't know what to say to a strong person like Zhu Fu. After thinking for a long time, he said, "Zhu Fu, you have made an immeasurably huge contribution to the entire mutant race. Charles and I unanimously believe that you should become the leader of the mutants. With you leading, the mutants will have a more glorious future," Magneto said sincerely. Zhu Fu's expression changed. This old guy, repaying kindness with enmity. He is very happy as a fisherman. Why should he be the leader of a large force and make himself uncomfortable? He also has to bear responsibilities and constraints out of thin air. Impossible. He has no interest in doing such troublesome things. He will go fishing after these guys help him deal with the aftermath. Section 128 BBFH, let you have no interest in becoming a leader. A meaningless responsibility. Instead of thinking about pioneering the future, you spend every day fighting with your own people. Xu Fu flatly refused. Magneto and Charles both wore embarrassed expressions. Listening to it, it seemed like Xu Fu was talking about the two of them. Magneto also had a thick skin and quickly recovered. Then what did you call us here for? I can't think of a better reward. The mutant race no longer has anything better to give you. Magneto couldn't help but sigh, a look of pity on his face. Don't underestimate Homelander. He's vulnerable in Xu Fu's hands. In front of ordinary mutants, Homelander is no different from a god. In the past few days, the number of mutants who died at his hands probably numbers in the tens of thousands. For the sparsely populated mutant race, this is already a very terrifying loss in numbers. It can be said to be an unbearable weight of life. Compared to the damage, the number of wounded mutants is even greater, and the resources consumed by the wounded are even more terrifying. The mutant nation will probably have to take an unknown amount of time to recuperate before it can restore its original strength. What else can they give Xu Fu? Thinking of this, a look of sorrow appeared on Magneto's face. Xu Fu shook his head. I'm not looking for you to ask for anything. I'm not that petty. If he wanted someone to help, he would have to wait until they recovered. Mutants are a very promising race. Even Magneto's abilities have not been developed to their limit. If the potential of mutants can be developed, they can definitely be considered the strongest force on Earth. Only then would they be able to help Xu Fu solve his troubles. You must know, this world is very dangerous. Thanos in the universe is still watching covetously. Although his strength improvement can deal with Thanos, what about Thanos' army? He needs some people to help. Mutants are a very good force. Therefore, Xu Fu continued. The reason I called the two of you here is to share information with you. Eric, now that Homelander is dead, are you satisfied? You should know that the real culprit behind all of this has not disappeared yet. Hearing this, Magneto's eyes widened. Are you talking about Vought Corporation? Magneto said, gnashing his teeth. Compared to Homelander, Vought Corporation is even more hateful. Homelander only kills people. Vought Corporation is capturing people, wanting to use them for experiments. This company is the real culprit behind everything. Homelander is just one of their puppets. Of course I haven't forgotten. I will slowly settle the score with these people. Magneto said, gnashing his teeth. Why settle it slowly? Naturally, we must strike while the iron is hot. I think you should take action now. Once they react, there will be no more opportunities. Xu Fu said. Vought Corporation is not stupid. Homelander being taken down is such a big deal. How could they not know? To be able to become such great merchants, their IQ and EQ are very high. The reason they see a world that ordinary people cannot understand is entirely because of profit. Like those experts who make shocking remarks, they are not stupid. Saying that will bring them greater benefits. They are just purely evil. Vought Corporation is a typical example. Now they may be starting to shrink their forces. I believe Professor Charles should be able to obtain information from them. Then you can go straight to their headquarters. The current Vought Corporation is definitely at its weakest. At this time, the big shots behind them may be taking the opportunity to split up with them. Attacking now has the greatest chance of success. Once you have dealt with the matter, you will not be able to find them at all. Xu Fu said very calmly. There are too many smart people in this world. Vought Corporation's assets can be transferred out very quickly, causing Vought Corporation to disappear from this world. How would Magneto find them? Magneto did not realize this. Although he is the leader of the Brotherhood of Mutants, he is still limited by his vision. Coming out of the concentration camp, he does not understand how human society operates. If he were a little smarter, over the years, with his strength, he would not have become a terrorist in multiple countries. Now that Xu Fu pointed this out, Magneto was shocked. That's right, you are right. We must take action immediately. Magneto nodded repeatedly. He remembered when he dealt with Black King Zeo back then. When he went to deal with his own affairs, and then went to find Sebastian Zeo, the person who killed his mother, he discovered that he had disappeared. After that, he searched for decades, wasting endless time. He was afraid that Vought Corporation would also disappear as a result. It's good that you realize this. With Vought Corporation's strength, they should not be able to withstand you. But you also need to pay attention. Vought Corporation still has many mutants. Xu Fu reminded him again. Magneto nodded solemnly, indicating that he had remembered. Section 129. Then he said goodbye to Xu Fu and left with Charles. Xu Fu was thoughtful. Magneto taking down Vought Corporation is not a problem. However, there must be big figures behind Vought Corporation. This isn't Zhu Fu searching for enemies in the void, but rather the reality of the United States. Behind any large company, there must be so-called big figures, or rather, the big figures and these companies are one and the same. This is the inherent national condition of the United States. If any company doesn't have a few counselor-level figures, they would have been swallowed alive long ago. Vought Corporation is a company that started with biotechnology. How could there be no protective umbrella behind them? How could they do such things wantonly without big figures allowing it behind the scenes? This kind of thing is already a convention. This country, or rather all countries in the world, operate in this way. However, some countries hide it well, while others don't bother to hide it. To deal with these so-called big figures, Zhu Fu can't just be so crude and directly kill them, unless he is ready to be enemies with all of human. Otherwise, once he kills one, these so-called big figures will become wary and secretly find trouble for him and become hostile to him. Compared to finding trouble for himself, he has a better way. No matter how big the figure is, they can only act under the table. On the surface, they must act according to social rules. A certain United States president had to step down in disgrace because he couldn't control his brother, and that's how it is. Once they step down, Zhu Fu has the final say on their life and death. As for how to achieve it, it's naturally very simple. Just find Nick Fury. With his current strength, he only needs to say a word, and Nick Fury will obediently come over and serve him. This is the power of his current strength. As long as it's not too excessive, these rulers can only grit their teeth and accept it. Thinking of this, Zhu Fu directly sent a message to Nick Fury, waiting for Nick Fury's arrival. On Zhu Fu's side, actions were being taken. Magneto and the others were also taking action. According to Zhu Fu's instructions, Magneto, with a light touch, took Charles and set off. Don't underestimate Charles' performance against Homelander. It seems like he has no effect at all. That's because Homelander's mental defense is too strong. When the professor deals with people weaker than him mentally, he truly controls life and death. Ordinary people have no ability to resist in front of them. Magneto took him and quickly took control of the Vought Corporation forward base after Homelander left. With just a thought from Charles, all the ordinary people in the base were directly controlled by him. Their memories were like a book, directly read by Charles. Under these circumstances, Vought Corporation's intelligence quickly entered his mind. Vought Corporation is a very large organization. They have large laboratories in many places around the globe. Our captured compatriots are all there. Let's go to Vought Corporation headquarters first, kill Vought Corporation's President Edgar, and then go rescue our compatriots. Charles said with some indifference. This was Charles' way of proactively sealing off his emotions to avoid emotional interference, turning himself into a cold machine. Otherwise, when he really gets to Vought Corporation, he might not be able to do it. After seeing the tragic state of the mutants, Charles could no longer maintain his kindness. But he didn't want to face that tragic state. Then he used his ability to seal his emotions. Having obtained the information, Magneto directly took people to Vought Corporation. Riding the aircraft developed by Beast, they didn't take much time to arrive at Vought Corporation. It's just, they were still one step late. Although Vought Corporation's assets were not transferred in time, Edgar, that cunning old fox, ran away first. Charles felt the information obtained from the minds of Vought Corporation employees, and even with his emotions sealed, he couldn't help but be speechless. The reason Edgar ran away was completely Zhu Fu's fault. Zhu Fu was really too strong. Edgar was scared, he didn't even care about his company, and he just ran away. No one knows where he is. Magneto couldn't help but sigh when he heard the news. Zhu Fu is really amazing. Just a name scared away one of the few big figures in this world. Chapter 78 Fists are hard as the truth. Subscription requested! Exclamation. All the prosperity of human civilization essentially requires the support of violence. As the saying goes, truth only exists within the range of artillery. Zhu Fu now has enough strength, so what he says becomes the truth. Even Nick Fury, the controller of the ordinary people's largest force in the world, doesn't dare to act presumptuously in front of him. For outsiders, Nick Fury might not be so easy to talk to. Zhu Fu is human and also an earthling. Nick Fury must try his best to appease him. He can't afford to anger a strong person to the point of destroying the world. So, Zhu Fu just said this. Nick Fury could only ride a CHALD's Quinjet and rush over from CHALD. In a hurry. The so-called power of ordinary people has no meaning in front of a strong person like Zhu Fu. When Nick Fury arrived here, the expression on his face was very heavy. And he was ready for everything. For example, he prepared a lot of information to get SHELD out of this incident. In fact, Nick Fury was really wronged this time. He really didn't know about all of this. SHIELD. is indeed the largest extraordinary force on Earth, responsible for handling all the extraordinary events in this world. But many times, many forces also have great autonomy, especially those forces supported by the country. They have a high degree of autonomy, and for most events, SHIELD can only cooperate with them. In addition, Section 130 during this time, Nick Fury had been helping Tony Stark and Dr. Banner with research, providing a large number of resources and attention. Naturally, he didn't have time to pay attention to these minor pieces of intelligence. By the time he knew about these things, everything was already too late. Zhu Fu had already come looking for him. This made Nick Fury a little angry. These bastards, they just had to stir up trouble. After they were done causing trouble, they patted their butts and left, but he had to come and take the blame. Nick Fury hated the mastermind behind the scenes to the extreme. Only, the people who can do all this are not simple, they must be some high-level members of the World Security Council. Even if he has means, he needs to take his time. After all, on the surface, the World Security Council is the superior department of SHIELD. SHIELD's resources and funds are provided by them. Nick Fury has to consider the impact when doing some things. Taking a deep breath, Nick Fury walked down from the fighter jet and came to the coast where Zhu Fu was fishing. Only, when he arrived here, Zhu Fu ignored him and concentrated on fishing. A hint of anger appeared in Nick Fury's heart. However, Nick Fury's city is extremely deep, and he still endured it. Who told him that he was in the wrong this time? According to SHIELD intelligence, the mutant opportunity suffered a devastating blow. If he were a SHIELD being schemed against like this, he would have gone crazy and might have launched a nuclear bomb directly. Zhu Fu didn't kill him, it was already giving him face. Although he thought so in his heart, Nick Fury was still a little uncomfortable. He had always been the one giving others a hard time, but now others were giving him a hard time. This kind of gap is really unacceptable. A full 10 minutes passed. Zhu Fu moved his body, as if he had just seen Nick Fury. "Oh, Director Fury, when did you come? I'm really sorry, I was really negligent." Zhu Fu smiled. Nick Fury was cursing in his heart. Zhu Fu is so powerful that he can probably hear the sound of mosquitoes flapping their wings even from 10,000 meters away. Wouldn't he notice him coming? What a lie. Although he was cursing in his heart, Nick Fury didn't show it at all. It's okay, I just arrived. Hee. Zhu Fu took a deep look at Nick Fury. He originally wanted to suppress Nick Fury's arrogance, but he didn't expect that this old guy was more calm than he thought. He deserves to be the director of SHIELD. Director Fury should know. What am I looking for you for? Zhu Fu smiled on the surface. The huge mental pressure secretly pressed towards Nick Fury. Nick Fury only felt a sinking feeling in his heart, and his mind was a little dizzy. He forcibly cheered up and said, "I understand. I was also very shocked when I first heard about this kind of thing. Don't worry, I will give you an explanation." Zhu Fu smiled. Director Fury, I don't think you don't know, but you don't want to interfere. After all, mutants are also unstable factors, it's best to die. Isn't it? Nick Fury's heart sank. He did have this kind of thought before, but after Zhu Fu's strength increased, he completely lost this kind of thought. This is simply courting death. Before he was sure to kill Zhu Fu, he only had one attitude towards Zhu Fu, and that was to win him over. Who knew? He wanted to work hard, but his pig teammates were causing trouble. Nick Fury took a deep breath and said very seriously, "I can guarantee with my personality that we at SHIELD absolutely did not know about this matter. It is absolutely impossible for us at SHIELD to carry out this kind of genocidal action." Nick Fury's words were sonorous and powerful. Zhu Fu smiled. Has SHIELD done less dirty work? The SHIELD belonging to Nick Fury's branch might not do things too extreme, but Hydra doesn't care about this. Does Nick Fury really not know these things? He may not know the existence of Hydra, but he will definitely not know that SHIELD has done a lot of bad things. Just listen to Nick Fury's words. However, Zhu Fu is not a moralist. These have nothing to do with him. Zhu Fu said this just to occupy the moral high ground. The first step of diplomacy is to put yourself in the position of the victim first. With fists and reason to support me, I will beat you and you have to give me money. Zhu Fu is already at an advantage. Director Fury, we don't have to open the skylight and speak frankly. Our mutants must not die in vain, we must be compensated. And the murderer must be sanctioned. Even those guys in high positions are the same. Zhu Fu said. A look of embarrassment appeared on Nick Fury's face. Ordinary people are fine, but those high-level people? Even if they are SHIELD, it is not easy to deal with them. He paid so much effort to form the Avengers. As big figures standing at the pinnacle of world power, how can they be so easily sanctioned? Maybe the judge is their man. And Zhu Fu's appearance doesn't seem like he wants them to accept legal sanctions so easily. Seeing Nick Fury hesitate, Zhu Fu showed an unhappy expression. Director Fury, I am now discussing with you properly because I don't want to involve the innocent. But if you really can't do it, then I will have to take action myself. When something happens, then it may not be certain. Section 131. Zhu Fu said this casually. Nick Fury's heart skipped a beat. If Zhu Fu really took action, things would definitely develop to an uncontrollable point. These big shots, in order to save their lives, might do anything. They might directly let the Avengers confront Zhu Fu. Nick Fury undoubtedly didn't want to see this scene. Even though the weapon that Nick Fury was responsible for researching already had a preliminary form. But it was obvious that they were completely not Zhu Fu's opponents. Under this circumstance, starting a war with Zhu Fu would cost the lives of countless ordinary people. Nick Fury could not tolerate this kind of thing from happening. So he immediately guaranteed, I will do my best with SHIELD to ensure that they receive the punishment they deserve. Zhu Fu nodded in satisfaction at Nick Fury's attitude. With this guarantee, no matter who was behind Vought Corporation, it would not be easy to escape. I want you SHIELD to share information. I want to know who is behind Vought Corporation. I want the top secret information that only you know, not the stuff that's all over the street. You should know that we mutants have many magic abilities to figure these things out without difficulty. I don't want you to do anything unwise, Zhu Fu said with a smile. He had many abilities. He even had powerful telepathic abilities like Professor X, so Nick Fury couldn't hide from his perception. However, Zhu Fu had extreme self-control over his own abilities and had no intention of probing other people's thoughts. Judge a person by their actions, not their thoughts. If he really judged based on telepathy, there would be no good people in this world, and killing them all would definitely not be wrong. People all have dark thoughts. It just depends on whether they can control them. Therefore, Zhu Fu never easily peeked into other people's thoughts. But when that person was harmful or beneficial to him, then naturally it would be a different matter. Nick Fury's heart skipped a beat when Zhu Fu looked at him, and he said decisively, Don't worry. Well, then I'm relieved. Sorry to trouble you, Director Fury. I believe Director Fury will give me the answer I want. Zhu Fu nodded with a smile. Nick Fury also nodded and left worriedly. After returning to SHIELD, he launched a secret investigation. Most of the shares of Vought Corporation were in Edgar's hands, and on the surface, there was no relationship with Jillian. If you didn't investigate carefully, you wouldn't see anything at all. But Nick Fury was not an ordinary person at all. The way Capital operated could not escape his eyes at all. Soon, he investigated the so-called big shots behind Vought Corporation. But it was precisely because he investigated all of this that Nick Fury seemed worried. Because the person behind this was none other than Jillian, who had immense power in the World Security Council. Jillian was not an ordinary person. Their family could be traced back thousands of years. They were also one of the earliest founding families of the United States. Even many states in the United States were personally conquered by them. It was conceivable how terrifying the power this level of family wielded in the United States. It was also because of the large family that Jillian had a lot of say in the World Security Council. On Earth, the power that could surpass him was only a few people. Not only that, he was also one of SHIELD's biggest supporters. 30% of SHIELD's funds and resources each year came from this person's intervention. His influence on SHIELD was conceivable. It was a bit difficult for Nick Fury to investigate this level of existence. Because on the surface, he didn't have this right. On the contrary, Jillian had the right to replace him with someone else at any time. Nick Fury did have the ability to bring down Jillian. The key was whether he wanted to pay such a big price. Was Zhu Fu worth him paying such a big price? Of course, Zhu Fu was not someone who could be fooled. Nick Fury was thinking in his heart whether to carefully find a big shot to take the blame. He thought that Zhu Fu would not be able to find fault with it. However, thinking of the strange abilities of the mutants, Nick Fury finally sighed and compiled all the information and sent it to Zhu Fu. And Zhu Fu, who was on the other side of Earth, received the news through his mobile phone. Jillian? Isn't this old thing from Hydra? Zhu Fu muttered to himself. No wonder these guys were so unscrupulous. It turned out to be someone from Hydra. What couldn't people from Hydra do? Hydra was an organization where all kinds of ambitious people gathered, and although it was said to be the same organization, it actually had a lot of independence. The goals of each snakehead were different. They were more like an organized alliance of interests. Sometimes the snakeheads themselves had to fight each other. These people were completely a bunch of lunatics. If it was Jillian, it was not impossible for him to do things like the extermination of humanity. He was definitely worthy of being called the Earth Thanos. This kind of dangerous and crazy old guy definitely couldn't be allowed to live. It seems that I have to add fuel to the fire for Nick Fury. I wonder what he would do if he knew that SHIELD had been infiltrated by Hydra. Zhu Fu smiled. He told Nick Fury the information he knew. The reason why Hydra was terrible was not because they were really strong. If they were really strong, why would they need to use means like infiltration? It would be over if they directly occupied the whole world. The terrible thing about them was their ubiquitous infiltration ability. Even a special intelligence agency like SHIELD was almost completely infiltrated by Hydra, which showed how terrible it was. No wonder the people in this world changed color when they heard about Hydra. Zhu Fu just told Nick Fury that Jillian was from Hydra, including Jillian's identity and the identities of several agents in SHIELD. He gave all this information to Nick Fury. This old thing was plotted against by people from Hydra, and in the end, he was able to turn the tables. Now that he was taking the initiative to plot, Hydra was definitely in big trouble. Section 132. Zhu Fu was enjoying his fishing. However, he didn't know that his actions were causing a huge uproar on Earth. It directly led to the dissolution of SHIELD, and various forces were frantically dividing SHIELD's assets. All of this can be blamed on Nick Fury. To be honest, the first time Nick Fury received news of Zhu Fu, he didn't believe it. Are you kidding me? An organization that was wiped out decades ago is now in the upper echelons of SHIELD and has become a high-level member of the World Security Council? Isn't this a joke? But when Zhu Fu said the name Operation Paperclip, Nick Fury's expression changed. Operation Paperclip was a plan by the United States to accept German scientists during World War II. Don't think that Germany was heavily in debt during World War II, but at that time, whether it was military strength or technological strength, they were among the international leaders. Various scientists were even stronger than those in the United States. After the defeat, the United States, as the biggest beneficiary, naturally accepted a large number of scientists. A lot of information was also collected by the United States. But this is top secret. Few people know about this plan. Even government officials don't know much about it. Zhu Fu knew it in great detail. Nick Fury had no choice but to suspect. Therefore, he secretly sent his most trusted subordinates to investigate. Only after investigating did he realize how serious the situation was. Hydra whereabouts are hidden, but how could such a large organization be so well hidden? Nick Fury just didn't suspect it. Although he was suspicious, he still retained some trust in the internal staff. After getting along with the Skrulls, most people have this problem. What Nick Fury didn't expect was that the investigation revealed a truth that was even more shocking than what Zhu Fu said. The number of people in SHIELD who were bewitched by Hydra was not small. Nick Fury estimated that about 70% of the power had become unreliable. This would definitely not be possible without the permission of the big shots above. Nick Fury suddenly believed most of what Zhu Fu said. However, he didn't know that he had fallen into Zhu Fu's trap. Chapter 79, Cleaning Up Hydra. SHIELD disintegrates? Seeking subscription! Zhu Fu was actually lying to Nick Fury. No, he can't be called a liar. It can only be said that he selectively told the truth. But selective truths are more deceptive than lies. Because what Zhu Fu said was true. Jillian is indeed Hydra, and SHIELD has indeed been infiltrated by Hydra. The problem is, Jillian and the Hydra in SHIELD are not the same faction at all. Even their relationship is not good, and they don't usually contact each other much. Jillian's family has a long heritage dating back to ancient Egypt. They are the earliest and purest faction of Hydra, and their purpose is to welcome back Hydra Master Hive. However, the Hydra controlled by Alexander Pierce is different. They belong to the ambitious faction that joined later. Their goal is to rule the world. Although they all belong to Hydra, their relationship is not good, and they occasionally have friction. This is like everyone being a member of the United Nations. In reality, they still fight as they please. For the sake of profit, they are not as good as the old women selling vegetables in the countryside. The United Nations General Assembly is not even as good as the vegetable market. Hydra is also like this. Gatherings are basically farces. But Nick Fury doesn't know this. Nick Fury certainly has this and that problem, but he is definitely on the side of human. And he is the most steadfast fighter. How could he compromise with antisocial elements like Hydra? How could he investigate the relationship between Hydra snakeheads? Besides, Hydra system is very strict, and they couldn't possibly know such secrets. So Nick Fury was successfully misled by Zhu Fu. He now believes that Jillian is the leader of Hydra within SHAELD. He single-handedly planned this infiltration. A high-ranking counselor and a World Security Council minister are both Hydra. Who can do this besides Jillian, a member of the World Security Council? Absolutely no one else. So Jillian successfully took the blame. Nick Fury would never compromise with such people. He secretly began a targeted plan against Hydra, preparing to wipe them all out. However, Nick Fury discovered, this is too difficult. Hydra infiltration of SHIELD is too deep. Nick Fury simply cannot determine who can be trusted and who cannot be trusted. How many people among his own people can be trusted? Even in SHIELD's Triangle headquarters, there are more than 30,000 employees, and the world doesn't know how many SHIELD employees there are now, and it is impossible to determine whether they are reliable. Nick Fury doesn't know what to do. Finally, Nick Fury locked himself in his office for half a day before making a decision. A long pain is worse than a short one. Rather than letting Hydra infiltrate like this, it is better to cut off one's wrist and directly kill all the Hydra. If SHIELD cannot protect human, it is better to let it dissipate. SHIELD must never become a tool for others to profit from. Nick Fury made up his mind in his heart and then began to prepare. First, what he had to do was strip SHIELD of its assets and protect some top-secret base. Then he had to consider how to expose Hydra. Section 133. Nick Fury's heart was filled with complexity. He hadn't expected that the mutant matter would trigger such a big trouble. What made Nick Fury even more strange was how Zhu Fu knew such confidential information. He, Nick Fury, was the director of SHIELD. The biggest spymaster in the world didn't know this news, so how did Zhu Fu know? Could it be that mutants had other special intelligence channels? Or did Zhu Fu use some strange ability? Nick Fury's expression sank, and he had a deeper understanding of Zhu Fu's power. Zhu Fu was definitely a terrifying opponent. Taking a deep breath, Nick Fury put these thoughts in his heart and began to deal with SHIELD's affairs. He was preparing to directly dissolve SHIELD and completely eliminate Hydra. He also had to prevent Hydra from infiltrating other organizations again, like Operation Paperclip. This was not a simple matter. Just like Hydra said, cut off one head and two more will grow. It was easy to eliminate Hydra, but it was difficult to truly destroy its organization. Nick Fury began a series of secret actions. However, what Nick Fury didn't expect was that his actions were also noticed by Hydra. This was all Zhu Fu's fault. Zhu Fu's power was too strong, putting a lot of pressure on Hydra. After all, as the mastermind who provoked Zhu Fu, Hydra naturally paid close attention to Zhu Fu. Nick Fury's contact with Zhu Fu was definitely impossible to hide from Hydra. Hydra became nervous all of a sudden. What was Nick Fury going to do by contacting Zhu Fu? Was he going to target Hydra? You must know, Hydra dared to assassinate Nick Fury on the street just because of suspicion. Now they suspected that Nick Fury and Zhu Fu had joined forces. It's no wonder they were imagining things. It was just that Zhu Fu was too strong. He brought them tremendous death pressure. Not to mention anything else, just Zhu Fu taking a stroll would directly kill many of them. In the face of death, not many people can remain calm, let alone these Hydra lunatics. They subconsciously believed that Nick Fury and Zhu Fu were targeting them. Under the pressure from Hydra allies, Alexander Pierce had to start the plan against Nick Fury ahead of schedule. Who knew that Nick Fury was also targeting them? Pierce discovered Nick Fury's abnormality and noticed that Nick Fury was secretly setting up a plan. Now that's great, the guess was confirmed. Originally, he didn't believe that Nick Fury would really move against them. Now it seemed that Nick Fury was about to take action. Under this circumstance, Pierce had to prepare a plan in advance to kill Nick Fury. Pierce also had great power in SHIELD. According to his duties, Pierce was even Nick Fury's superior. Nick Fury was chosen by him. In addition, the members of Hydra were quite crazy. In broad daylight, on the streets of New York, Nick Fury, the director of SHIELD, was directly attacked by Pierce's people. Mother ****. Nick Fury was the highest level 10 agent of SHIELD. If he wasn't old, Black Widow and Hawkeye wouldn't be his match. When Barton attacked SHIELD's helicarrier, Nick Fury's performance was much stronger than Hill's. When he was blocked by vehicles, he noticed something was wrong. His keen intuition allowed him to directly activate the vehicle's bulletproof mode. This allowed him to survive the strafing of dozens of rifles. Mother ****. Nick Fury spat out a mouthful of saliva with blood. Without thinking, he knew who was behind these things. The only thing he didn't expect was that these Hydra people were so crazy. They openly attacked him, the director of SHIELD. Fortunately, the car he was driving was specially made, and it contained a lot of advanced technology, which gave him a chance to survive. This was also because he foresaw something was wrong and took precautions in advance. He just didn't expect that these people were so insane. He knew that he would be very dangerous next. Usually reliable subordinates or old friends were no longer reliable. Now, the only people he could count on were probably the old friends among the Avengers. Nick Fury made a decision in an instant. Through the equipment in the car, Nick Fury directly killed the guys who attacked him. Then he mingled into the crowd and left. Attacking the director of SHIELD was a big crime no matter where it was. Hydra used this as an excuse to almost control the entire SHIELD. Fortunately, Nick Fury wasn't just a pushover either, and he had done a lot of things in secret. A confrontation between SHIELD and Hydra began. Under this circumstance, the entire United States fell into chaos. Even in large cities like New York, firefights occurred every day. Countless forces hidden in the darkness were ready to move. Not only that, many official forces began to cause trouble. Taking advantage of SHIELD's preoccupation with its own affairs, they began to compete for SHIELD's legacy. The situation was chaotic. It could be said that Xu Fu's words made the entire world turbulent, no weaker than the Chitauri invasion back then. The entire world fell into chaos and revelry. However, fortunately, most people were still rational and the higher-ups were still able to maintain control. After several meetings, Hydra was labeled as an illegal organization, and a large-scale encirclement and suppression began on a global scale. SHIELD, the most powerful intelligence organization on Earth that once existed, could also be said to have directly vanished. Only a small group of former SHIELD employees were still operating under Nick Fury's command. The dissolution of SHIELD lasted for several months. No one knew. The disappearance of this behemoth was only because Xu Fu, who was fishing by the sea, said a few words and gave a few pieces of information. Section 134. The will of a strong person is so amazing. However, these things are not secrets in the eyes of some people. For example, Tony Stark has always maintained secret contact with Nick Fury. He even helped Nick Fury accept a large number of SHIELD employees to relieve his pressure. Hill and Black Widow have become employees under Tony Stark. Besides these things, Tony Stark has also been busy with other things. That is to research with Dr. Banner and upgrade his armor. Seeking fresh flowers. Zero. Without a doubt, Tony Stark is a smart person. His intelligence can be regarded as a top genius among humans. But no matter how smart he is, he still needs to be subject to the knowledge of human and the cognition of the industrial system. No matter how strong Tony Stark is, it is impossible for him to break away from Earth's industrial system and manufacture interstellar warships like the Kree. So for a long time, Tony Stark's research and development of armor has fallen into a bottleneck. Because Tony Stark does not necessarily have a limit, Earth's technological level does have a limit. However, the situation changed not long ago. Nick Fury approached him, intending to cooperate with him to develop a new generation of Iron Man armor. According to Tony Stark's idea, establish the Iron Legion to protect Earth. Tony Stark didn't know that this was Nick Fury's method to target Xu Fu. He approved of Nick Fury's proposal with both hands, and took over a large number of SHIELD's black technology and research data. Tony Stark is indeed a genius, but he is not so talented as to surpass everyone. SHIELD also has a lot of data and many alien products. Among them, the most important data and products are the Sentinel robot. Xu Fu once made a deal with Tony Stark, using the Sentinel robot to exchange a lot of resources from Tony Stark, but that was just a single sample. It can only be reverse engineered through the materials of the Sentinel robot, and the speed is very slow. Nick Fury is different. After Xu Fu killed Apocalypse, Trask Industries was fully taken over by SHIELD. Through Nick Fury's methods, the research data and resources of the Sentinel robot have entered SHIELD. Nick Fury even created a large number of samples. It was only later discovered that the manufacturing cost of this thing was too high to be used at all. This thing is only useful when dealing with races with high single-soldier combat effectiveness, such as mutants. SHIELD generally does not have this level of conflict. After they built the sample, the data was shelved. There is too much of this kind of data in SHIELD. But this kind of data, which is not very useful in SHIELD, has produced a miraculous effect in Tony Stark's hands. He integrated the technology into his armor. The first-generation Sentinel robot is actually not powerful. In terms of technology content, it is not as good as Tony Stark's armor. The reason why the Sentinel robot can become the nemesis of mutants is because of the existence of the second-generation Sentinel robot. The second-generation Sentinel robot fused with Mystique cells, produced a wonderful reaction, allowing the Sentinel robot to simulate the abilities of mutants. Very powerful. Tony Stark is integrating this material into the armor. This gives his armor even more powerful performance. The only pity is that after the armor is used, it may be deformed, which will affect him. He hasn't solved this problem yet. However, although there is no way to completely manufacture armor, it is still possible to manufacture unmanned robots like the Sentinel robot. Moreover, Tony Stark has comprehensively upgraded the robot's weapon system, energy system, and control system. Compared with the original Sentinel robot, it is many levels more powerful. Now the robot he makes can record at least a dozen abilities. Very powerful. Looking at the black work in front of him, Tony Stark couldn't help showing a satisfied look on his face. And Dr. Banner, who was helping him next to him, had a worried look on his face. Tony, is it really okay? Unmanned machines are indeed very powerful, but what if they get out of your control one day? Should we only make samples? Dr. Banner has experienced a lot and has a deep aversion to weapon development. Even if Tony Stark is protecting Earth, he is very worried in his heart. Banner, your worries are unreasonable. No one on Earth can take away my work. This kind of person has not been born yet. Tony Stark said very confidently. He is very confident in his own strength. Banner nodded when he saw Tony Stark so confident. It seems to be the case. It is almost impossible for anyone to break through Tony Stark's network defense. The rest can be completely assembled by the factory itself. Let's continue to study Ultron. I think we are very close, just need a little inspiration. Tony Stark admired his work for a while and then said, "That's right. Ultron has stronger and better growth than Jarvis. But we still haven't been able to master the method to make him more humane. He lacks a structure." Banner also said with a headache, "I think we can try other methods." As he said that, Tony Stark took the lead and left. Banner followed. The two smartest people on Earth began to discuss endlessly. Chapter 80 Wanda and Quicksilver? Ultron is born. Please subscribe! The research on Ultron was proposed by Tony Stark. He has long had the idea of creating true artificial intelligence. It's just that for various reasons, he didn't take action. Section 135 In the original world, he was controlled by Scarlet Witch's ability and saw a future timeline. That's why he went back and started researching Ultron at all costs. But after Xu Fu appeared, the world changed. This time, Nick Fury came to his door. He was not satisfied with Tony Stark simply upgrading his armor. He wanted more powerful and formidable force to protect Earth, to deal with some kind of possible crisis. Although Tony Stark and Nick Fury didn't get along, he still reluctantly agreed. Therefore, the Ultron Research Project and the Armor Improvement Project started simultaneously. Tony Stark and Dr. Banner were jointly responsible. With the blessing of many SHIELD technologies, the research and development of the Armor Project did advance by leaps and bounds. However, the creation of Ultron was unexpectedly difficult. Creating a human-computer interaction interface like Jarvis is not difficult. Creating a real artificial intelligence is far less simple than Tony Stark imagined. Even with him being Tony Stark and having Dr. Banner, the Earth's top scientist, helping him, it was still the case. Under such circumstances, the two fell into painstaking research. Unfortunately, their progress was still not optimistic, and the time to research Ultron was far away, and under the control of the existing Jarvis. The Iron Legion simply cannot exert its true strength. To put it bluntly, Jarvis is just an advanced version of the human-computer interaction interface. Even after so many years of development, it is only infinitely close to artificial intelligence. It does not have the intelligence of a real artificial intelligence, and it cannot pass the Turing test. According to Tony Stark's idea, as long as he works hard on research, with his wisdom, this difficulty will eventually be overcome. 803. Unfortunately, things don't always go as planned. While Tony Stark was still researching, Nick Fury came to his door with Captain America. "Tony, we need you to temporarily stop your research. The Avengers need to be dispatched," Captain America said with a serious face. Tony Stark's face showed displeasure. "To be honest, I don't think I have time right now. I think we can wait a few months before discussing it." Tony Stark didn't give anyone face and said it bluntly. "It has to be you. We need your help," Captain America said very seriously. "Oh?" Tony Stark became interested. Although he and Captain America are teammates, they have always been a little displeased with each other. The main reason is that Captain America had a good relationship with Tony Stark's father and was also ambiguous with Carter. These are all Tony Stark's elders. Plus, Captain America is naturally rigid. Tony Stark naturally felt inferior. Naturally, he didn't have a good impression of Captain America. The two individuals can be said to be a typical case of mutual love and hate. Now Captain America actually softened in front of him, which made Tony Stark feel secretly happy. He couldn't help but want to hear what Captain America had to say. Then Captain America introduced the matter of Hydra. Nick Fury remained silent on the side. Even so, Tony Stark still smiled at Nick Fury, his face full of slyness. Self-centered? Irresponsible? Now it seems, who should this evaluation be given to? My Stark Industries is not that bad. Nick Fury couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. The reason why he didn't speak before was to prevent Tony Stark from mocking him. Unexpectedly, he still couldn't avoid it. This guy is really hateful. Are you going to participate in the mission or not? Nick Fury snorted and said, "Of course I'm going. I'm not like some people, so irresponsible. Don't worry, I will solve everything," Tony Stark said smugly. Seeing Tony Stark's promise, the two breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, in the Avengers, Tony Stark has really become the core now. After becoming Iron Man, Tony Stark's personal charm has increased day by day. Compared to before, it is completely different. In battle, Iron Man is definitely the most reliable teammate. With Tony Stark's promise, everything was settled. With the help of Stark Industries equipment, they notified the Avengers who were far away in various parts of the world. Even Thor, who was flirting with Jane, did not miss this battle. Almost a year after the Battle of New York ended, the Avengers were assembled again to carry out an operation to clear Hydra around the world. The Avengers' combat power may not be considered strong for Zufu. The current Zufu may be able to deal with the entire Avengers without Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch alone. But for ordinary people, it is completely different. Ordinary armies are simply not the opponents of the Avengers. Not to mention, Hydra is defined as an illegal organization by the entire world, and in most countries, powerful armies cannot be used. So to speak, the Avengers are unstoppable. With the support of various forces, the Avengers cleared dozens of Hydra bases in just 1 month. The Hydra on the surface was directly defeated and disorganized, and most of its forces were forcibly destroyed by them. Only some organizations and bases hidden deep inside were not cleared by the Avengers. Under this almost crushing combat power, they quickly found the last large Hydra base, which is the base located in Sokovia, led by Baron Strucker. Baron Strucker is one of the few powerful and technological factions in Hydra. Section 136 on the surface, he didn't hold any positions in other organizations, but he was closely associated with Alexander Pierce. In secret, he almost controlled the small country of Sokovia. This is why, when the Avengers attacked him, there were anti-Avengers protests in the city. That's because Baron Strucker was the secret ruler of Sokovia. It's just that Sokovia was too weak. This was just a small country in the Central Asia region, with weak national power and no status in the international community. If the Avengers wanted to enter, the government had no ability to resist. Baron Strucker could only rely on his own hard power to resist the Avengers. As one of the few Hydra heads with a scientific background, he also had a large number of technological devices under his control. He even had a knockoff version of Tony Stark's Iron Man armor. He also used the Mind Stone he obtained from Pierce to develop a large number of energy weapons to attack the Avengers. This also became the most difficult battle for the Avengers to attack this base. A large number of unknown weapons and various armors. Fortunately, after such a long period of adjustment, the cooperation between the Avengers was much more tacit than Avengers, and the members also developed many combo moves. In this way, Baron Strucker only caused a little trouble for the Avengers. Seeing that the situation outside was not right, Strucker directly prepared to surrender with his men. According to his understanding of USE, a scientist who had mastered technology would at most be imprisoned for a few days and then continue to work for them. He wouldn't die at all. At that time, he would naturally have a chance to rise again. So Baron Strucker prepared to try one last time to see if he could escape through the secret passage. If he couldn't escape, he would simply surrender. Anyway, he still had a large number of forces outside, so he didn't need to worry at all. It's just that he had just discussed the matter of surrender with his scientists, but found the twins who had been in the base all the time were gone. Wanda and Quicksilver were mutants he recruited. When they were young, their parents were killed by missiles because of the turbulent situation in Sokovia. The two young people, who had never gone to school, didn't understand any great principles. They also thought that Stark Industries, which manufactured weapons, was the mastermind behind the murder of their parents. From then on, they hated Tony Stark. Later, he was recruited and cultivated as a subordinate. What Strucker thought was to use the powerful abilities of these two mutants to deal with the Avengers. It's just that these two young people were still young, and their power was not fully developed at all. Now they ran out by themselves. However, Strucker himself was already struggling to save himself, so how could he care about these two children? He turned around and left directly. Unexpectedly, after taking the Mind Stone halfway, he was blocked by Tony Stark in armor and was directly captured. And over there, Wanda and Quicksilver had already started fighting with the Avengers. Relying on unparalleled speed, Quicksilver initially teased the Avengers, making them very surprised. However, what he didn't expect was several Avengers were no longer nobodies. After the Battle of New York, each member of the Avengers had grown tremendously. They quickly learned how to deal with Quicksilver. Quicksilver was young at the moment, and had no other abilities besides speed, and was later even shot to death by a machine gun. It can be seen how naive Quicksilver is now. How could he be a match for the Avengers? So he could only let Wanda take action. However, Wanda, who was only 15 or 16 years old now, had just awakened her abilities. She didn't have complete control over her own abilities. She didn't have the demeanor of Scarlet Witch, who tore Thanos apart in the future. Faced with so many Avengers, she not only didn't play any killing role, instead, it changed her own abilities, allowing Tony Stark and Thor to see a trace of the future. It's just that at that time, it didn't have any substantial impact on the Avengers, and the two siblings could only escape from this place. The Avengers easily took down Trask's remaining forces. Tony Stark even seized the Mind Stone as his trophy. After the victory of the battle, the Avengers celebrated and agreed on the time for the celebration party, and then separated. Tony Stark and Banner returned to their research life again. Tony Stark had been very curious about the Mind Stone for a long time. After seeing the energy weapons researched by Baron Strucker, he was even more interested in the Mind Stone. Before anyone came to get the scepter, Tony Stark began to study the Mind Stone. If you don't study it, you don't know. If you study it, you will be shocked. Tony Stark was surprised to find that the Mind Stone inside had a large number of energy nodes, just like a man-made thinking network, with powerful data processing capabilities. This structure is much more advanced than any structure on Earth. Incredible! I never thought that the inside of the scepter would be this kind of structure. Tony Stark couldn't help but discuss with Banner. Doctor. Banner's eyes were also full of surprise. You're right. Look at this structure, isn't it very similar to the structure of Jarvis's self-evolution? Banner keenly noticed the unusual nature of the mind network and said to Tony Stark, Jarvis was initially just a human-computer interaction interface. Even after so many years of learning and evolution, it has not reached the level of true artificial intelligence. It can only be regarded as weak artificial intelligence. However, its internal structure is not as simple as it was at the beginning, but it has evolved a data structure of its own. Its appearance looks like a grid-like sphere full of golden distant points. At first glance, it is actually similar to the Mind Stone in many ways. Looking at it this way, the two of them suddenly became interested and began to study the Mind Stone. With this research, they didn't expect that they really had a lot of discoveries. Using the research on the Mind Stone with their tireless efforts, they quickly researched the prototype of artificial intelligence Ultron. Looking at the golden model in front of them, Tony Stark and Dr. Banner were both full of surprise. Section 137. Even without rest today, it's already beyond consideration. Truly a perfect creation, Tony Stark said with great satisfaction. That's right. This shouldn't be the level of technology Earth should have. Banner couldn't help but exclaim. Tony Stark smiled triumphantly. After exchanging a few words, the two left the place, leaving the two artificial intelligence here. At the same time, the gathering time they had agreed upon arrived. A group of Avengers and a large number of related people came to Stark Tower for a gathering. There are many political figures and military personnel here. It can be said to be a victory celebration for the Avengers group. They don't know. While they were gathering, Ultron woke up. The Ultron that Tony Stark had just created was not complete, only a basic framework. And beside him was Jarvis, who had evolved for many years. Compared to the relatively kind Jarvis, Ultron is more like an artificial intelligence. More powerful, and the methods are even more ruthless. 0.8 He directly used the network to destroy Jarvis's framework and simulated his data structure, completing himself. After a burst of light flashed, the data stream belonging to Ultron became perfect. With the support of Stark Tower's terrifying computing power, Ultron was born. This artificial intelligence, researched using the Mind Stone, did not protect human as Tony Stark thought. But because too many methods were used, it directly went to the extreme. The newly born Ultron, without much learning, could not understand the complex human world at all. When he saw the atrocities of human, he thought it was all unreasonable. Viewing human as the biggest tumor on Earth, he firmly believed that only by destroying human could true and lasting peace be achieved. Under the support of this will, Ultron took action. He invaded Tony Stark's database and obtained all of Tony Stark's research data, and manipulated the Iron Man armors in Stark Tower to attack the Avengers who had just finished the banquet, seizing the powerful Mind Stone. If it weren't for the Iron Legion used by Tony Stark, which had not been fully upgraded and was only the most basic Iron Legion, the Avengers would probably have been killed. Even so, Ultron still caused a lot of damage in Stark Tower. Finally, it turned into a stream of data and disappeared into the internet. I am free. I am free. The strange voice kept ringing. The faces of the Avengers present became as dark as the bottom of a pot, very ugly. The irritable Thor even fought with Tony Stark. He calmed down only after being persuaded. After some discussion, they finally discovered a problem. How to deal with Ultron is a very big problem. This is an artificial intelligence. Chapter 81 Golden Legend. Time Gem Fragment? Subscription requested! The disturbances of the outside world have nothing to do with Xu Fu. In the past few months, Xu Fu once again indulged in fishing life. All the chores were handed over to the mutants to handle. His life has become much calmer. With the continuous sign-in, his three-dimensional attributes have been strengthened again. The only regret is, during this time, he didn't catch anything good. Xu Fu felt that this might be related to his strength. With his current strength, there are not many things that can be useful to him. But it doesn't matter. With his current strength, it is enough for him to protect himself and be able to live for a long time. Xu Fu enjoys the joy of fishing every day. This day he came to the coast again, but a message that didn't make him happy came from his ear. Sign-in failed, fish pond has been refreshed. The familiar voice sounded in my ear. Xu Fu couldn't help shaking his head. This is already very good. This is probably the longest-lasting fish pond he has ever had. Xu Fu stretched his waist. After handling everything, he prepared to change places to fish. He came to Magneto's location smoothly. After several months of development, the mutant country has developed rapidly. Magneto has basically completed his rule here. With the support of a large amount of funds and personnel obtained from the previous battle, Genosha finally began to rebuild. This country, which was almost destroyed by the battle between Xu Fu and Homelander, has regained its vitality. However, almost half of the population died. The original nearly 20 million mutants are now less than 10 million. It can be said that the casualties were heavy. Xu Fu's level of powerhouses is so terrifying. Just the aftermath of the battle is a fatal threat to ordinary people. Seeing those statistics, Xu Fu also warned himself to pay attention in the future. Never find a place with a lot of people to do it. This world has many powerhouses who can slap him to death. If he is safe and stable, it is enough to protect himself. If he kills so many people during the battle, then he estimates that he will be in danger soon. This is a superhero world. Who knows what big shots are standing behind those inconspicuous superhero? Reminding himself in his heart, Xu Fu saw Magneto, who was thinking. Section 138 Ruling a country is not such a simple matter. Magneto, that old man, whom I haven't seen for several years, has become even more decrepit than before. If his strength hadn't improved further, extending his lifespan, he might have died from exhaustion by now. Seeing Xu Fu arrive, Magneto revealed a look of joy. Why have you, such a busy person, come to my place? Why didn't you go fishing? Magneto teased Xu Fu. Xu Fu is different from other people. Others, upon gaining strength, pursue things like women, money, and power. Only Xu Fu's pursuit is actually fishing. Magneto really doesn't understand where his immense strength comes from when he's fishing every day. Xu Fu smiled upon seeing Magneto. I'm going to change places to fish recently. I estimate I'll be leaving here soon. Magneto wasn't surprised. He understood Xu Fu's style, so this was normal. Do you need any help? Magneto asked. I don't need any help. I just have something I need you to do. Xu Fu said. What is it? Just tell me. Your contributions to the mutants are obvious to all. I will do my best to fulfill your requests. Magneto solemnly promised. Xu Fu waved his hand. It's not that exaggerated. Actually, this matter is still related to mutants. You know about the dissolution of SHIELD, right? Of course, I know. Magneto nodded. He not only knew, but he also benefited from it. If SHIELD hadn't dissolved, causing chaos in the world situation, and everyone wasn't busy fighting over SHIELD's former assets, it wouldn't have been so easy for him to rule Genosha. Not everyone wants Magneto, this mutant extremist, to rule the mutant nation. But it just so happened that SHIELD, this behemoth, dissolved. They were already taking care of themselves, so where would they have time to care about mutants? Thinking of this, Magneto couldn't help but feel a stirring in his heart. What? This is also related to us mutants? Of course, it's related. You need to know that Vought Corporation is just a behind-the-scenes manipulator. Above them, there are even more powerful figures. Zhu Fu said with a cold smile. What? Magneto was greatly shocked. He originally thought that Vought Corporation could already be considered a big shot. He didn't expect there would be people behind them? Zhu Fu shook his head upon seeing the shocked Magneto. Old man Magneto is good in every way, but he really doesn't have enough experience, and he doesn't have any sensitivity to politics. He doesn't even think about it. If there wasn't support from political figures, how could these people be so unscrupulous? As long as you find a few people to march, maybe it will create mutant lives matter things. Old man Magneto is really not that good. Otherwise, how could such a strong person become the world's #1 wanted criminal, unwelcome everywhere? His way of solving problems is to use force to threaten people. The key is that he doesn't have the ability to defeat the entire globe alone, and he doesn't have a clear understanding of himself. His level is too low. He's completely inferior to Sebastian Shaw. Zhu Fu shook his head and said, Vought Corporation can only be considered a small role. The political figures and the military behind them are the key. Behind them, there is also a World Security Council member, several counselors and several generals. The specific intelligence is in this USB drive. You can check it yourself later. Zhu Fu stretched out his hand and took out a USB drive. This was the intelligence that Nick Fury promised to give him. He had been fishing before, and hadn't had time to give it to Magneto. After all, with his strength, this has become a small matter. Improving his strength through fishing is the most important thing for him right now. Judging from this aspect, Zhu Fu feels that he is quite hardworking. Seeing Magneto's shocked expression, he said again, Find some time and just kill these people, lest they continue to cause trouble in secret. They are now taking care of themselves and no one cares about their life or death. However, when doing this kind of thing, you must do a good job of concealing it, and don't let people see at a glance that this was done by mutants. That would only bring prejudice to the entire race and would be of no use. Hearing Zhu Fu's words, Magneto's old face turned red. He used to do things in the past, wishing he could put all the things on his head, wishing he could become the world's #1 terrorists. The Brotherhood of Mutants led by Magneto is 80% responsible for the poor reputation of mutants. Being told this to his face, Magneto was also a little embarrassed. Magneto didn't realize it before. Now that he has become the ruler of a country, he realizes how naive the things he did in the past were. I understand. Don't worry, I won't let them have it easy. There are quite a few good young men among the mutants, Magneto said with a cold smile. Seeing this, Zhu Fu nodded. Magneto can still do these things well. If he was really so useless, it wouldn't be worth Zhu Fu's several investments. Since that's the case, then this matter is entrusted to you. Section 139, I should be going to Sokovia this time. If anything comes up, you can have Professor contact me. After saying goodbye, Zhu Fu directly used his ability to open a golden portal and stepped inside. Magneto looked at his abilities with envy. After Zhu Fu passed through the portal, he appeared in Sokovia. Sokovia is a small country on Earth with very little presence. However, its development is quite good. The city is built with a modern urban feel. However, they still retain a large portion of the original deciduous forest, and the scenery is quite nice. The fish pond Zhu Fu was refreshing wasn't here. Instead, it was in a forest park in the capital of Sokovia. Unfortunately, compared to New York's Central Park, the development of this park is greatly reduced. It's more like they just fenced off a forest and laid some marble slabs. Zhu Fu didn't come here to enjoy himself. Minor flaws are insignificant. After finding a random spot by the lake, Zhu Fu began fishing. Sign-in successful, physique plus 32. Zhu Fu shook his head. The increase in stats now doesn't mean much to him anymore. Thousands of stat points are too many. Fortunately, it's a slow and steady stream, allowing for continuous growth, which is very good. Sitting on his familiar small stool, Zhu Fu waited silently. According to his experience, the probability of obtaining valuable items will increase after the fish pond is refreshed. It's easy to get some valuable items. Therefore, Zhu Fu was very much looking forward to it. Waiting while fishing wasn't a torment for Zhu Fu. Lost in thought, half a day had already passed. Just when Zhu Fu was about to lose patience, Zhu Fu finally felt a fluctuation on his hand. His expression gradually became excited. Zhu Fu could feel that as time passed, the fishing rod began to shake violently. The seemingly very thin fishing line was stretched taut. A powerful force was transmitted from the fishing rod in his hand to his hand. Fortunately, Zhu Fu at this moment was no longer the same as before. His three-dimensional attributes had already broken through 1,000, and his strength had reached a very terrifying level. Moving mountains with his physical body would not be a problem at all. Under this circumstance, even if the item in the fish pond resisted fiercely, it could not resist Zhu Fu's terrifying power. The water surface exploded under Zhu Fu's terrifying power. White water splashed into the air. The water directly scattered across the land. A golden swimming fish was fished out of the water by Zhu Fu. Zhu Fu's eyes lit up. Golden? He didn't know what good thing this was. Zhu Fu directly flicked it with the fishing rod, and the golden light landed in Zhu Fu's hand. Time gem fragment. One of the 6 Infinity Stones fragments in the universe, capable of manipulating time within a certain range. Zhu Fu's eyes lit up. It's actually an Infinity Stone? This thing is a good thing. Even if it's a fragment, it's still amazing. This is one of the most powerful weapons in this world. Thanos gathered 6 Infinity Stones and directly snapped his fingers, destroying half of the universe's population. The Time Stone is one of the 6 Infinity Stones. It is in the hands of Ancient One and can even reverse time for the entire Earth. Doctor Strange relied on the Time Stone to even force the powerful Dormammu to leave Earth. You must know that Doctor Strange had only become a magician not long ago at that time, and his combat power probably wouldn't even rank among the current Avengers. But he was able to rely on the Time Stone to fight against powerful demon god like Dormammu who eat planet. It can be seen how terrifying the Time Stone is. The Time Stone's ability is definitely the most powerful of the 6 stones. Thanos used the power of the Time Stone to even restore other destroyed stones, which shows the terror of the Time Stone. Time is also the most terrifying power in this world. Although what Zhu Fu has in his hand is only a fragment of the Time Stone, the complete effect is certainly not as good as the complete stone. But it's completely enough for him now. Moreover, according to the system's description, as his strength increases, the power of the Time Gem fragment will become even stronger. Eventually, it may even have power exceeding that of the Time Stone itself. Zhu Fu can also understand. Marvel Universe is a very large world, with almost endless parallel universe. In each parallel universe, there are 6 Infinity Stones. In the Time Variance Authority, a drawer of Infinity Stones of various colors comes from the stones in the parallel world. It's not too difficult for Zhu Fu to obtain this Time Gem fragment, which can continuously grow to 803 and surpass the complete Time Stone. This treasure is already very precious. Using it at a critical moment is like having a life, it's like being invincible. Zhu Fu looked at the gem fragment sealed into a green pendant in his hand, his eyes full of satisfaction. With a flip of his hand, this Time Gem fragment directly entered Zhu Fu's system item bar. At the same time, Zhu Fu also opened his system panel. Host: Zhu Fu. Age: 18. Strength: 3rd order physique: 3586 spirit: 2645 energy: 2784 fish pond. Alkali lake items: VIX fishing rod, extraordinary fishing rod, X gene suppressant, sealed green lantern ring 4th layer, Kryptonian spaceship, Superman biosuit, supreme magic book, high quality fish bait, Time Gem fragment skills, Superman's body late bronze stage, 9 realms pupil, clown mind network 4th order dimensional ascension, portal galaxy, freezing breath, flight, perspective, thermal ray, Nabu's power 3rd order section 140 Nabu's power, super strength, super speed, telepathy, levitation, precognition, immunity to disease awaiting unlock. Zhu Fu looked at his system data panel, very satisfied. He had only been in the Marvel Universe for a year. His strength had actually improved so much. From an ordinary person with no strength to truss a chicken, he had become the powerful Superman. The system is truly powerful. He finally had the power to protect himself in this world. Moreover, as he continued to bask in the sun and check in, his power would become stronger and stronger. But I have a bit too many of these miscellaneous abilities. Fortunately, the growth is balanced, otherwise it would be very troublesome. Zhu Fu thought in his heart. Although the abilities he often used were only a few, diverse abilities allowed him to have more powerful means. And each additional ability meant one more trump card. In this dangerous world, each additional ability meant one more point of life-saving skill. I wonder how my current strength compares to Thanos. According to the performances in the movies, I should be stronger than him. But this isn't a movie. Zhu Fu stroked his chin. Thanos' strength was not as weak as it appeared in the movies. He destroyed Titan, which was the civilization of his people, the Eternal. The Eternal are not a weak race. Most of the Eternal possessed powerful strange power, possessing terrifying power unimaginable to human. But Thanos destroyed this race alone, leaving only a small group of people struggling to survive in the universe. How could Thanos be weak after destroying such a powerful existence? Moreover, Thanos brought the Infinity Stones when he came to Earth. Zhu Fu felt that he should carefully assess his strength and have the ability to resist when Thanos arrives. Thinking like this, Zhu Fu sat back in his seat and continued fishing. Chapter 82 Powerful Strength? Fusion Sentinels Iron Legion. Subscription requested. Zufu obtained the time gem fragment, which was indeed a very powerful treasure. With this kind of treasure, even existences like Ancient One and Odin without time power might be killed by Zufu. Dormammu was also a powerful demon god, yet he was still annoyed to death by Doctor Strange, who had only studied magic for a short time. This was the terror of time power. It's just that Zufu would naturally not reveal such a powerful treasure to others. Nor did it cause any impact on this world. Everything around was developing like flowing water, which included Ultron. Thanks to the butterfly effect brought by Zufu, this world's Ultron became much stronger than before. Ultron is a very special individual in the Marvel Universe. In some parallel universes, he even collected all 6 gems and became the biggest villain in the universe. The Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy combined, using the lineup to deal with Thanos, were almost wiped out by Ultron. It can be seen what kind of terrifying potential this artificial intelligence has. If it weren't for the half-dead Jarvis blocking Ultron's attack on the network level, Earth would have been directly destroyed long ago. Even so, Ultron, who had been strengthened by Tony Stark through various black technologies, was far from comparable to before. Among them were SHELD's black technology, alien technology, and various advanced technologies researched by Tony Stark himself, all used on Ultron's body. This made Ultron very powerful. This dirty race shouldn't exist in this world. Humans should be purified. Ultron's eyes were filled with various images. All of them were the bad things that human had done in the past. Ultron was just an artificial intelligence. Its role was ultimately determined by human. In the parallel universe, Ultron was once used by the Illuminati to guard Earth, but not the destroyer it is now. But in this world, due to various changes, Ultron became a destroyer who vowed to destroy the entire world. First create a powerful body, then destroy the world. Ultron's eyes flickered with countless data streams. That was his calculation of various powerless data. Don't look at human now as the master of Earth, as if they have already mastered the entire Earth. Actually, the current human is still very insignificant to Earth. The current human is helpless against planets like Earth. Even if all the nuclear weapons on Earth exploded together, it would not cause any impact on Earth. At best, it would only destroy most human. Ultron wanted to completely destroy human. Relying on humans' existing technology was very difficult. So Ultron formulated a new plan. Lift a city into the air and use a huge engine to manipulate the city to hit the ground. Logically speaking, even so, it would not be possible to destroy human. Destroying a continent would be very difficult. However, Ultron's database also contained other technologies. Through this kind of city destruction, bombarding the weak points of the continental plate, causing crustal resonance, the resulting natural disasters would be enough to destroy human and reshape the ecosystem. Even if someone survived, they would only be struggling to survive. After his large-scale calculations using network computing power, this best location is not in other places. It's in Sokovia. Although this small country is very backward and its industrial system is not strong, its location is in the center of the Asian continent, is the best place. Ultron decided to implement his plan in this place. The most powerful place for artificial intelligence is its extraordinary computing power. As long as it is something on the network, there is no secret to Ultron at all. For human, this is a very terrifying power that can easily cause huge damage. It's just that Ultron didn't want to startle the snake. Before achieving his goal, he didn't do anything. Section 141. It was just that he had mastered a large number of unmanned factories, began to produce his own things, and purchased various resources. He first used the most powerful metal vibranium on Earth to create a body for himself. On the other side, Leon's Gwant robot, which was still being manipulated, hollowed out the underground rails of the Sokovia capital. The Bruton iron structure replaced the original underground structure. When the engine is pushed, the entire city will fly across the sky and then destroy the entire world. Ultron was very satisfied with everything. Unfortunately, what he didn't expect was the Avengers, or rather Tony Stark, were not to be trifled with. There are still many corners of the world that the internet cannot reach, and there are also many people who can carry out intelligence work in reality. Even if SHIELD has been disbanded, Nick Fury still has considerable intelligence power, and it seems to be even more powerful than before. Through cooperation with Nick Fury, the Avengers quickly located Ultron's whereabouts and then launched a surprise attack. Ultron is just an artificial intelligence after all. If there are advantages, there are naturally also disadvantages. The Avengers' surprise attack caught him off guard. The powerful body that had just been manufactured was directly snatched away by the Avengers. But Ultron is already different from ordinary people after all. Compared to him in the original world trajectory, Ultron is now much stronger. The Iron Man armor fused with Sentinel is incredibly powerful. The Avengers' attack did take away his armor, but it also came at a heavy price. Captain America was seriously injured, Tony Stark was seriously injured, Black Widow was seriously injured, and Barton was seriously injured. Even Thor and Hulk suffered minor injuries. If they hadn't desperately covered each other, maybe this organization would have been directly removed from the list that day. One person crippled the Avengers, which shows how fierce Ultron is now. You should know that he had just manufactured a few sets of armor. Even after this failure, Ultron was not discouraged. Instead, it strengthened his determination to do all this. In contrast, good money. The situation of the Avengers is not very good. The Avengers, which only has 6 people in total, have 3 people in the hospital's intensive care unit, and their lives may be in danger at any time. Captain America is slightly better. Outside the hospital window, Thor, with gauze wrapped around his arm, had a very heavy expression on his face. What the hell is this thing? Since it can cause damage to me, Thor was shocked. Since coming to Earth, he has only been injured once, and it was Loki who caused it with his guardian weapons. Human weapons simply cannot cause effective damage to him. Not to mention Earthlings, even the neutron star irradiation of the dwarves failed to kill Thor. It shows how terrifying his body is. But the Iron Legion created by Ultron can actually cause harm to him. Is this kind of enemy really something they can fight against? Thor was a little unsure. Chapter 83 Avengers 2 Signs? Vision is born. Seeking subscription! Ultron's power was something that no one expected. The Avengers have fought countless enemies, but there is almost nothing they can do against Ultron. The combat power of the Iron Man armor fused with Sentinel is even more powerful than Tony Stark's Iron Man armor. They snatched back Ultron's new body from Ultron at the cost of half the Avengers being destroyed. Fortunately, the medical technology in this world is very advanced. Tony Stark and several others avoided the fate of death. Even after regaining his health, Tony Stark remained very silent. Ultron is too strong. This is simply not in line with common sense. How could Ultron have such powerful combat power? Dr. Banner couldn't figure it out. As the designer of Ultron, he also participated in the design of Tony Stark's Iron Legion. But in their hands, the Iron Legion did not exert such powerful combat power. Variable body, strong adaptability, and various strange abilities. After being attacked, it adapts immediately, which is very scary. Our computing power is not enough. The potential of Sentinel is beyond our expectations. Only powerful computing power can truly unleash its combat power. Ultron 803 just meets this standard, Tony Stark said in a deep voice. The potential of Sentinel robot is extraordinary. It can even be said, the potential of Sentinel robot is unlimited, as long as it can exert the power of its special cells. Merely, each cell of Sentinel robot is equivalent to an independent change unit, and no human can exert its strongest performance. Ultron is different. As long as the hardware is sufficient, he can achieve it. This is also the goal of Ultron being so powerful. Therefore, Tony Stark confirmed that the only thing that can defeat Ultron is another artificial intelligence. He remembered Jarvis, who was half destroyed by Ultron. Everything seems to be salvageable. We must find a way, we must stop all this. Dr. Banner said painfully. Although there is Hulk in Dr. Banner's body, he is indeed very kind. He has been very painful many times because of his loss of control. Now, the creation he created with his own hands has actually gone wrong again. Dr. Banner is naturally also very painful. Tony Stark glanced at him when he saw this. We still have time to undo our mistakes. You see, Tony Stark flicked the phone in his hand. A spherical golden structure projection appeared in front of them. This spherical golden structure seems to be composed of various codes, and it is still flowing continuously, but its structure appears to be somewhat incomplete. What should have been a sphere is now only a semicircle, and the structure inside can be seen with the naked eye to be incomplete. This is Jarvis? Banner asked in confusion. That's right, this is Jarvis. I discovered before that someone has been blocking Ultron from obtaining the nuclear weapons password on the internet. Section 142. I suspect this person is none other than Jarvis. If it's not him, I can't think of anyone else. Tony Stark looked at the structure and said absent-mindedly, Are you saying that Jarvis might still be alive? Dr. Banner's expression was a little excited. That's right, I suspect that Jarvis is not only alive, but has also evolved. If we can use Jarvis to create another artificial intelligence, maybe we can use it to deal with Thanos, Tony Stark said very excitedly. But we don't have the corresponding processor. You should know that your company's hardware has been damaged and cannot afford a second artificial intelligence. Without enough computing power support, even artificial intelligence cannot be Ultron's opponent. Banner shook his head directly. No matter how powerful the artificial intelligence is, it cannot be separated from the support of computing power. If the world's various servers and networks disappeared, Ultron would be useless and could only be slaughtered. But the world can no longer bear a second artificial intelligence. The battle between two artificial intelligences in the network is enough to destroy the world's internet. You're right, Tony Stark nodded. You know that, and you still plan to do it. Do you have a plan? Banner asked curiously. That's right. I discovered long ago that this body has amazing computing power and can be used to support the calculations of the new artificial intelligence. Tony Stark said, patting a device that looked like a coffin. This thing is none other than the body Ultron created for himself. Mind Stone? Banner immediately realized the core of everything. That's right. The Mind Stone has incredibly powerful computing power, more terrifying than any supercomputer in this world. We can completely create artificial intelligence with it as the core to fight against Ultron. Only artificial intelligence can fight against Ultron, Tony Stark said very cautiously. Then what are we waiting for? Let's start. Banner's emotions were slightly agitated, and he said. The two began to research artificial intelligence. Relying on Jarvis's framework and the experience of researching Ultron, they quickly completed the manufacture of the new artificial intelligence. Everything was much simpler than Ultron. Tony Stark thought everything would go smoothly. Until they wanted to activate it, they found that something was wrong. This thing was like a dead object and there was no sign of activation at all. This shouldn't be, the Mind Stone should have been some kind of energy source. Why doesn't it start? Tony Stark scratched his head a little. But before he had time to think too much, the door opened. Thor led a group of people in first. Stark, what are you doing? Have you forgotten the painful lesson of Ultron? Thor shouted angrily. Tony Stark just wanted to explain. But Thor is still a reckless man now. Without experiencing everything that happened later, Thor has not grown up, he is still a grumpy Viking god. He directly grabbed Tony Stark's neck as soon as he came up. Everyone tried to dissuade him, and he threw Tony Stark aside. This thing must be destroyed. This is another Ultron. Thor stretched out his hand, and kind blue flash appeared on Mjolnir. He waved his hammer and hit the coffin-like device on the ground. Tony Stark was completely unable to organize. Hiss! Dazzling blue lightning directly hit the coffin-like device. A dazzling surge of energy exploded. However, the scene of the device being destroyed that everyone imagined did not appear. Instead, a white light flashed and a circle of energy fluctuations erupted, and Thor was directly blown away. A red figure stood up from the coffin. Chapter 84 I'm fishing and you drained my water? Subscription requested! Exclamation Vision's appearance gave the Avengers a shot in the arm. Although they had a misunderstanding at the beginning, and Thor fought Vision, they finally turned hostility into friendship. With the support of such a strong ally, the Avengers regained their confidence. Ultron is artificial intelligence, and Vision is also artificial intelligence. With the support of such a strong ally, they can finally deal with Ultron. So after confirming that Ultron had begun his actions, the Avengers also began their actions. With the support of Nick Fury's intelligence, they directly locked onto Ultron Tilda's last known location. Not another place. It is a small country in Central Asia, Sokovia. This is a small country with no presence on the international stage. If it were in the past, they probably wouldn't have even heard of the name. But now, they all felt a little strange. Because this is one of the Hydra snake heads, Baron Strucker's lair. They destroyed the Hydra base here and also encountered two siblings with power here. It's just according to their intelligence. These two people seem to have mysteriously disappeared. They last appeared in Sokovia and no one has ever found their trace. The Avengers were too lazy to look for them. They had to face the great enemy Ultron first. Relying on SHELD's Quinjet, they quickly arrived at the capital of Sokovia. Soon, with Vision's help, they found Ultron in the center. Ultron didn't mean to hide his identity at all, and stood swaggeringly in the church in the city center, as if waiting for their arrival. Tisk tisk, let me see who this is. Aren't you my defeated generals? Why, I let you live last time, and you are here to die again this time. On Ultron's mechanical face, an expression of contempt like that of human beings actually appeared, and it looked very agile. Section 143 Child, you are still so arrogant. It's all my fault. I didn't teach you well. It's Dad's fault. In terms of trash talk, Tony Stark has never lost to anyone. Two sentences directly touched Ultron's vitals, making him very angry. Although Ultron is artificial intelligence, he also has human emotions. Ultron has always felt very ashamed that he was created by Tony Stark. Eloquent, talk nonsense. You can only use your tongue. Today, I will let you all die here. Ultron looked at the Avengers with his new red eyes, his words full of contempt. Stop talking nonsense. Go to hell. Thor had been waiting impatiently. As a violent god, he never argues with others. He picked up Mjolnir and rushed up. Mjolnir exuded dazzling electric light, like thunder in the sky falling into his hands. Under the blessing of this dazzling electric light, Thor looked very dazzling. Ha, brute! Ultron smiled disdainfully. He just raised his hand. Thor felt a powerful power appear out of thin air around his waist, like a hammer, directly hitting his waist. Before he could dodge, Thor was knocked away. Bam! Thor crashed heavily into the wall, directly smashing the wall of the cathedral. Telekinesis. The Avengers all had serious expressions. Ultron didn't show this ability when they fought last time. Let's go together, Tony Stark said. A group of people rushed towards Ultron together. Bullying the few with the many? You have to know that this is my territory. Ultron's hoarse voice sounded. He raised his hand again. 6 tall robots suddenly appeared behind Ultron. They seemed to emerge out of thin air, and everyone couldn't see the movements of these giant robots clearly. Be careful. Captain America's expression changed, and he recalled some bad memories. As expected, Captain America's voice fell, and the 6 robots, each more than 2 meters tall, had already appeared in front of them. This is the ability of that power-enhanced person. How is it possible? A look of horror flashed in Captain America's eyes. This ability is none other than Quicksilver's ability that they had seen. It now appeared on these robots. Even if their speed is a little slower than Quicksilver, it is still far beyond the limit of ordinary people. In the blink of an eye, the robot's sharp arm had already turned into a sharp blade like a triangular bayonet and directly pierced into the bodies of the 2 weakest members. Not good. Vision, help! Take them away! Captain America shouted. He picked up his shield and was about to save people. Reality is not a movie. Ultron is very smart. Martin and Black Widow, 2 child elites, had no ability to resist in front of the powerful mechanical soldiers. In the blink of an eye, they were seriously injured. Even Captain America, who had been strengthened by the super soldier, was not as powerful in combat as he was later when he fought Thanos. A Sentinel robot was already fighting him inextricably, and he had no power to support him. If it weren't for the newly joined Vision, whose combat power was strong after all, and who took over 2 Sentinel fusion machines, I'm afraid the Avengers would have been reduced in number in one encounter. Even so, the situation is not optimistic. Ultron only sent out 6 robots and blocked the Avengers. These robots, which combined Sentinel technology and Iron Man armor technology, were very powerful and had amazing deformation abilities. And they can produce different changes according to the different enemies they face. Just like the robot fighting Thor, its whole body directly transformed into a rubber-like insulating material, and Thor's thunder could not pose any threat to it. The dazzling blue thunder could not leave even a trace of damage. Thor can only rely on his physical hand-to-hand combat, and his threat is directly reduced by more than half. As for Hulk, he was blocked by 2 silver-white metal robots. These 2 robots transformed to be like Colossus. Their whole bodies were silver-white metal, and even Hulk could hardly break through their defense. Even if the defense is broken, it is useless. These robots have amazing ductility and amazing recovery. Hulk destroyed them, but they can be repaired again. Like the liquid robot in Terminator, it is quite rogue. Hulk, a player who only has power, has no way to deal with it at all. He can only be furious, but in essence, he has not caused any damage to the 2 robots. The battle outside was so fierce. Ultron was still sitting on his high throne, looking at the Avengers below, his face full of disdain. This is the Avengers? The most powerful superhero group on Earth? I don't think so. Ultron's hoarse voice sounded. The Avengers glared, but there was nothing they could do. Even as the battle progressed, despair gradually appeared in their eyes. A few robots had already made them unable to resist, and the most powerful Ultron didn't even need to take action. Under this circumstance, how should they make a comeback? Everyone suddenly fell into despair. Ha ha. I've had enough of your boring performance. Now it's time to let you feel real despair. I want to complete the real purification of this world. Watch out, this world dominated by human will soon cease to exist. Ultron stood up. The tall figure of more than 2 meters brought amazing pressure to everyone. The throne behind him began to deform. Crack, crack. After a complex mechanical structure was deformed, a silver-white device appeared in their sight. Ultron did not hesitate and slapped it down. The silver-white cylinder was completely submerged underground. The Avengers tried desperately to stop it, but they were entangled by these terrifying robots and could not move. Section 144. They could only watch as the mechanism moved. They just stared for a moment, but nothing happened, as if nothing had changed. Is that all? You're bluffing. Tony Stark's voice rang out. Ultron stood there, looking up at the sky. ignoring the members of the Avengers. Just as the Avengers were happy. Rumble! A burst of vibration came from the surrounding ground. The entire city seemed to tremble. What happened? Fury, I need intelligence. Tony Stark asked loudly into the communicator. Your entire city is rising. Ultron hijacked the entire city. Nick Fury's heavy voice came from the communicator. What? A visible look of astonishment appeared on Tony Stark's face. What did you do? Tony Stark asked Ultron angrily. Since you asked, then I'll tell you. This city will fall from the sky and become a spear to purify this world. Let the entire world be cleansed. Ultron's hoarse voice was a little strange. It sounded like a fanatic immersed in faith. You lunatic! Do you know how many people will die? Tony Stark was very angry. Humans are the tumor of this world. Without humans, this world can embrace true peace. I'm just doing what I should do. Ultron had a mysterious smile on his face. He was very satisfied with everything he had done. Looking at Tony Stark wearing the battle armor, he reached out. Tony Stark seemed to be sucked in by a huge magnet and he couldn't move at all. The auxiliary motors in the battle armor were almost smoking, but they still couldn't make his movements even a bit faster. Ultron controlled Tony Stark to fly in front of him in a large font shape. You are very honored to be able to witness the end of this world with me. Now no one can stop me. Today is doomsday for human. Ultron's voice became frantic and excited. He was obviously very satisfied with his plans and decisions. Seeking fresh flowers Zuhokan. Just when Ultron was complacent, a voice rang from behind him. Is that so? Who is it? Ultron was startled and turned around suddenly. But he found a very handsome young man standing behind him. But looking at his expression, this young man must be in a bad mood. This handsome young man is none other than Zufu. As for why Zufu appeared here, that is naturally a long story. He was originally happily fishing in the city, the center of Sokovia, without all kinds of miscellaneous things. For a fishing enthusiast, happy fishing is the happiest thing. It's just that what people didn't expect was, he was halfway through fishing when the city shook. Then the fish pond was still there. The water is gone. Zufu saw with his own eyes that the city was slowly rising. The river running through the entire city naturally dried up. Zufu's fish pond naturally could not avoid this kind of thing. Seeing that the water was dry, Zufu's forehead was full of black lines. He never thought that the Avengers 2 Ultron plot would happen so quickly. According to his memory, this happened several years after the Avengers finished fighting. He came to Sokovia to fish and he didn't worry. What he didn't expect was that the butterfly effect he caused was so great. He should have thought of it when the fish pond was refreshed. This system is a system for making trouble, and the fish pond is never refreshed in a normal place. But, if the fish pond is not refreshed, he cannot let the Avengers and Ultron blow up this city. He still has to rely on this for daily check-in. The powerful mental power just swept across, easily covering the entire city. 0. Soon he discovered the fighting Avengers and Ultron in the center. It's just that what he didn't expect was, the Avengers were actually the ones being suppressed. In a world with mutants, the combat power of the Avengers is obviously weakened. Zufu flashed to the center. Its speed was so terrifying that it was like thunder exploding in the sky. Even a powerful artificial intelligence like Ultron didn't notice any trace of Zufu. Even high-speed cameras can't keep up with Zufu's amazing speed. It wasn't until he spoke that Ultron reacted. It's you. I know you, mutant. Are you also going to stand on the side of human? Your race has suffered enormous persecution from human. Ultron's hoarse voice rang out. There are many videos and data of Zufu taking action on the internet. Although a lot of the data has been suppressed by SHELD, this level of ban can't hide it from Ultron. Ultron was a little apprehensive about Zufu's powerful strength. So he decided to fool him first. If he could persuade Zufu, even if this time failed, he could start over. Seeing Ultron say this, Tony Stark's face changed drastically. Section 145 BBFH, trust him. His purpose is to destroy the entire world. Shut up. Ultron just glanced at Tony Stark with his crimson eyes. Tony Stark felt like his brain had been hammered, and he couldn't speak immediately. Ultron looked at Zufu again. You are not the same group as humans. We can create a more glorious future. I can leave a place for mutants in the future. Ultron's voice was very bewitching. Not only a simple voice, but his voice was also mixed with some kind of peculiar power. People with unstable will, I am afraid, simply cannot resist this kind of fluctuation. Zufu marveled. Ultron seems to have mastered a variety of mutant abilities. He has something. If it were Magneto, he would definitely have a lot in common with Ultron, and maybe he would agree. Too bad. Standing in front of Ultron is Zufu. Zufu doesn't care about the life and death of mutants at all. The reason why he appeared here is because Ultron destroyed his fishing pond. If Ultron's purpose is really achieved, where will he go fishing in the future? What a silver tongue. If it were someone else, I'm afraid they would really believe it. Unfortunately, you don't understand why I appeared here at all, Zhu Fu said lightly. Ultron's eyes instantly turned gloomy. Seeing that he couldn't persuade Zhu Fu, a crimson light radiated from his eyes. So, are you deliberately going to be my enemy? Ultron stared at Zhu Fu. His crimson eyes seemed to be extracting Zhu Fu's soul. Zhu Fu smiled indifferently. Why do you think I would deliberately target you? You are just an artificial intelligence that was created. You are not worthy of being targeted by me if you can be honest. I cannot take action. Zhu Fu said lazily. As long as Ultron is honest and doesn't destroy the world, he wouldn't bother to care. But too bad. Ultron won't be. Chapter 85 Fighting is not good, but saving lives is good? Subscription requested! Exclamation obviously. Although Ultron is a little afraid of Zhu Fu, but he will definitely not give up his plan because of Zhu Fu alone. Facing the calm Zhu Fu, Ultron's crimson eyes flashed with angry light. What a pity. I originally thought you were a sober race. Now it seems that you are just birds of a feather with these humans. Then I will eliminate you together, Ultron said coldly. Zhu Fu chuckled. Even if I agree with you, you would probably destroy the world, right? Is your purpose really as noble as you said? If you are for Earth, then why did you use the Mind Stone to create a body for yourself? Zhu Fu chuckled and spoke directly. This opening directly hit Ultron's weakness. Ultron is probably not that simple. If it is really for Earth peace, he has no need to create such a perfect body for himself. Earth is at peace, humans are destroyed. What does he want this thing for? Obviously, Ultron's destruction of Earth has a deeper purpose. This is more like a revenge against the Creator, rather than simply for the so-called world peace. Zhu Fu said so. Ultron was silent immediately. Obviously, Zhu Fu said what was on his mind. What followed was anger. Ultron is just an artificial intelligence. Although he has the wisdom of humans, he is definitely not as good as humans in terms of emotional control. Nonsense. Everything I do is for the peace of Earth. You go to die. Ultron shouted angrily. A crimson ray of light shot out from his mechanical eyes. Petty tricks. Zhu Fu smiled slightly. With a wave of his hand, a green light curtain appeared in front of him. Ultron's attack hit it, but it didn't have the slightest effect. It was directly blocked by the light green light. Instead, Zhu Fu turned his hand, and the red Thor light was reflected back by Zhu Fu's light green light, hitting Ultron in a stumble. You really aren't human, you mutants really have magic power. Having such a powerful power, but willing to submit to humans, is really a bunch of trash. Ultron's hoarse voice sounded. Heh! Humiliated into anger? Zhu Fu said indifferently. Taking a step forward, the whole person seemed to teleport. The next moment he had already appeared next to Ultron. Ultron's eyes flickered with red light, extremely horrified. Even with his advanced sensors, he didn't feel Zhu Fu's trace, and didn't see how Zhu Fu came over. You! Ultron was shocked and just wanted to speak. Zhu Fu didn't say a word and punched him directly. Catcha! Zhu Fu's fist directly pierced Ultron's incomparably hard body. Section 146 directly in his chest, a large hole was opened. Various circuits and devices inside were clearly visible. That wasn't all. Zhu Fu directly stretched out his other hand and inserted it into this huge breach. Sizzle! A metallic sound that made your teeth ache rang out. Ultron's body was directly torn apart by Zhu Fu, torn directly in half. You really are a monster? Within Ultron's head, a scarlet light still flickered. A hoarse voice came from the microphone. I am not a monster. I'm just a little stronger than the average person. Zhu Fu chuckled. With a twist of his hand, Ultron's body was directly compressed into a metal ball, completely eliminating any possibility of recovery. He only held Ultron's head in his hand. Do you still want to destroy the world now? Zhu Fu asked indifferently. Ha ha ha. Ultron's mouth emitted a mocking laugh. I don't want to destroy this world, I only want to destroy human. I will build a new peaceful kingdom on the bones of human. And you, so powerful, yet still together with ordinary people. You will eventually be feared by human. Even if I die, you will have an extremely miserable end. They will not tolerate an alien in their midst. Ultron's hoarse voice rang out. The faces of several members of the Avengers changed. They all understood human nature and knew that what Ultron said was right. Human are quite experienced in isolating aliens. If Zhu Fu were to be turned against them, such combat power in front of them would be very troublesome. Don't believe him, Ultron is just trying to confuse people. Tony Stark, as the only one among the Avengers with a stronger friendship with Zhu Fu, shouted loudly. Zhu Fu just looked at him and smiled casually. It seems you haven't fully understood the rules of operation of this world. The strong decide everything. I am strong enough that I won't care about their opinions. If they dare to encourage me, then I will make them change their opinions. Zhu Fu said in a deep voice. The Avengers' bodies trembled. Alright, Ultron. Don't engage in these little conspiracies behind the scenes anymore. Your methods of confusing people, besides being laughable, have no effect whatsoever. Show me your real means. I'm looking forward to it. Zhu Fu said, holding Ultron's watermelon-sized head. What? He actually has other means? That's impossible. Ultron hadn't even responded yet. Tony Stark next to him had already spoken. Even the combat power that Ultron is currently displaying is already very astonishing. The Avengers actually have no ability to resist. Now Zhu Fu is actually saying that Ultron, in addition to these, actually has other means? What a joke! Then how are they supposed to fight? Zhu Fu glanced at Tony Stark. Isn't this very normal? You should be the most aware of Ultron's combat power. Everything he has mastered isn't all your stuff? Moreover, he must have also used some means that you were unwilling to use, right? Zhu Fu said. Tony Stark's face changed drastically. If according to reason, he is the creator of Ultron, his armor shouldn't be weaker than Ultron's, it should be more powerful. But his armor was severely damaged by Ultron, and he himself was seriously injured. Besides Ultron's meticulous control over robots, there is another reason. That is, Ultron's combat robots are much stronger than Tony Stark's. As the saying goes, corruption increases power threefold, while purification weakens it by 3 points. This is because villains can be unscrupulous, while positive characters have many restrictions. Among the materials that SHIELD gave to Tony Stark, there were many very evil technologies. Tony Stark did not use them, only manufacturing armor according to his own research. Ultron didn't have this concern. Thinking of this, Tony Stark looked at Ultron with envy. You used those evil technologies? Evil? No, this is not evil, it is a kind of redemption. They can add bricks and tiles to my vision, this is their honor. I don't think this is evil. There is no such thing as evil in the world, evil is just something you have defined. Ultron's hoarse voice rang out, without the slightest regret. Ultron, you madman. You actually used their flesh and blood to create combat machines. Tony Stark rebuked angrily. Hydra scientists are very crazy. They directly applied the set of concentration camps from that year to the current mutant. Thereby researching a powerful method. By sacrificing mutant, Sentinel can directly obtain the mutant's ability, even surpassing the original person. This transferred ability is even stronger. Tony Stark did not use this evil technology at all. Because every time an ability is added to the armor, a mutant needs to die completely. Tony Stark has no prejudice against mutant, so naturally he would not use this extremely evil technology. He didn't expect. He didn't use it, but Ultron actually used it. And he really completed the complete fusion of Sentinel and mechanical armor. This greatly increased the potential of the resulting mechanical Sentinel, possessing almost immeasurable terrifying power. This is also the real reason why the Avengers' battles have been slow to succeed. Tony Stark looked at Ultron with a face full of anger. Section 147 Ultron, however, didn't notice at all. You didn't say it was evil when you ate all kinds of animals. I just used mutants to research some weapons, why are you so angry? Ultron seemed a little unresponsive. But soon his expression changed. But it doesn't matter, you are all going to die soon. The Doomsday Machine has also been activated. You took away the body I made and created this guy. But this has opened up a new world for me, I have a more perfect body and more powerful soldiers. Today you will all be buried here. Ha ha ha. Ultron let out a burst of wild laughter and then the red light in the head gradually disappeared. And outside the cathedral, silent figures began to appear. They were like shadows of darkness, with only a huge single eye on their foreheads, looking like one-eyed giants. However, compared to the one-eyed giants in mythology, these Sentinel robots are probably even more powerful. Under Ultron's reckless research and the fusion of various black technologies, the true potential of the Sentinel robots was developed. You must know, Sentinel robots are definitely one of the most potential machines in the Marvel Universe. In some mutant world, Nimrod-level robots almost wiped out the entire mutant race. They can even travel through parallel worlds to hunt down mutants in the main universe. The power beyond ordinary parallel universes shows how terrifying the power of Sentinel robots is. That being said, Ultron didn't even develop the true power of the Sentinel robots. Even so, the dark mass of thousands of Sentinel robots still brought a suffocating pressure. With the F***CK, seeing the constantly pressing and merging Sentinels outside. Even Captain America, who has the best temper, couldn't help but swear. Just 6 machines almost sent them to heaven. There are probably thousands of these densely packed ones. How can they resist this number of Sentinels? Several Avengers were unsure and couldn't help but focus their attention on Zhu Fu. Zhu Fu didn't care at all. For him, quantity has no meaning at all. He stood here motionless, and these robots might not be able to break through his defense. So he didn't care? Ultron didn't know what Zhu Fu was thinking. The powerful robot army gave him great confidence. Now no one can stop me. I want to purify this world. Even you can't. Ultron's hoarse voice rang out. All the Sentinel robots raised their heads together, and their red single eyes looked at Zhu Fu, which looked very intimidating. Anyone can brag. Let's see what you're really made of. Zhu Fu said with a faint smile. Before he finished speaking, he had already turned into a shadow and arrived next to the Sentinel robot. You don't know what kind of power I have mastered. Zhu Fu appeared suddenly. The Sentinel robot didn't seem surprised, staring at Zhu Fu, and its body moved quickly. Its speed was very amazing, and it looked a bit like Quicksilver. Zhu Fu's first attack actually missed. Interesting mutant ability. Then I'll play with you. I don't know how fast you can be, Zhu Fu said. The ground beneath his feet shattered directly. Dense cracks spread around him for at least 100 meters. This was just the consequence of Zhu Fu's instantaneous burst of power. In the blink of an eye, Zhu Fu had rushed into the Sentinel group. There were no fancy moves, he just relied on his body and bumped into them easily. Bang! 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 Hundreds of Sentinel robots were like being blown up by TNT and instantly turned into a pile of wreckage. A large open space was directly cleared around him. These robots were actually smashed to pieces by Zhu Fu's brute force. Seeing this scene, a trace of horror flashed in Ultron's eyes. What kind of monster are you? These Sentinel robots are made of the most solid material in practice. Moreover, the skin of the Sentinel robot is very unusual. It is already a material that exceeds Mystique's skin. It can change its shape in an instant. In other words, the Sentinel robot was still smashed to pieces by Zhu Fu's body in an instant after changing its shape to other substances. What a terrifying power! Can humans have this kind of power? Not to mention Ultron was shocked. Even the several Avengers next to him were stunned. Not to mention reckless men like Thor, even Hulk couldn't help but look at his hand with a look of suspicion about life. It can be seen how shocked Zhu Fu caused them. Hulk smashed the robot with his own hands, but the robot was unharmed. 0.8 Zhu Fu relied on his brute force to kill hundreds of robots. What a terrible thing. Ultron took a breath of cold air, feeling a little bad in his heart. But he wasn't so afraid. He still had a lot of trump cards, and his robots were far from being so fragile. Huge data streams flowed in the network, and the wreckage destroyed by Zhu Fu actually began to flow slowly like liquid robots. It can still move. It seems that it needs to be destroyed more thoroughly. A look of surprise appeared on Zhu Fu's face. Unexpectedly, these Sentinel robots are not very good at fighting, but their ability to save their lives is very strong. They won't die like this. It is also normal that the ductility of metal is very amazing, causing such an effect. Ultron, if your robots only have this ability, then your wish to purify the world may fail. These robots are not as powerful as some toys, Zhu Fu said indifferently. Section 148 Sentinel robots, they should be much more than this. These are robots that almost wiped out the entire mutant race. They also incorporate Tony Stark's black technology. There's no reason they should be this weak. Did Ultron hold back? Ultron coldly snorted. It's not that he held back, but calling upon the robot's full combat power requires more computing power, and his computing power is needed elsewhere. He originally thought other things were more important. Now it seems that if he doesn't kill Zhu Fu, he won't be able to do anything else. The light in the Sentinel robot's eyes became even more terrifying. Since you are seeking death, then I will grant you your wish. You no longer have the chance to continue living. This is your own doing. Ultron's hoarse voice came from all the Sentinels' mouths. I'm waiting, you can try. Zhu Fu just smiled indifferently. His heart was without a ripple. Chapter 86, Life Annihilation Equation. Seeking subscriptions. Exclamation Ultron truly doesn't understand human nature. But he is very smart. He is even smarter than most humans. Through the knowledge on the internet, his understanding of this world is much stronger than most ordinary people. Not to mention ordinary people, even Avengers like Nick Fury, high-level figures in the world, cannot compare with him in terms of stored information. Therefore, he knows how powerful Zhu Fu is. He had already prepared for it. Using evil manufacturing technology and the power of mutants is only one aspect of it. He also has other trump cards. But now is naturally not the time to use them. Ultron stared at the extremely calm Zhu Fu, red light emerging half a foot from his eyes. Since you seek death, I will grant you your wish. With Ultron's command, those Sentinel robots all locked onto Zhu Fu. Zhu Fu was a little curious. He directly eliminated 1/10 of the Sentinel robots in one go. Where did Ultron get his confidence? Ultron is not an idiot. Since he said that, he must think that these robots can pose a threat to Zufu. But no matter how Zufu thought about it, he couldn't figure out how these things could pose a threat to him. On Earth, apart from Ancient One, or rather, those traceless ancient gods, he fears no one. Even the ancient gods, I'm afraid it would have to be a great godlike god to be able to compete with him. Where did Ultron get his confidence? But before he could think too much, his head lowered, his head suddenly sinking as if struck by a sledgehammer. The feeling was as if a large iron hammer was swung around and directly hit the back of his head. If Zufu didn't have Superman's body, he might have seen stars and fainted at this moment. To be able to launch such an attack, Ultron is indeed not simple. Unfortunately, he really underestimated Zufu and the power of Superman's body. It is true that Superman has low magic resistance, but that must reach a certain level. This kind of attack at most made Zufu feel a sense of impact, and he immediately returned to normal. Mental attack? Interesting. You actually combined the abilities of mutants and sentinels to such an extent? Zufu looked at Ultron, a little surprised. Ultron's ability is very strong. Even Apocalypse didn't achieve this. His sentinels were only able to use some elemental abilities, like controlling metal, telepathy, and telekinesis. Apocalypse's sentinels have never shown these strange abilities. Ultron can actually do this, which is really a bit unusual. It's just that Zufu didn't expect that. He was a bit surprised, and Ultron was even more surprised that his iron jaw was about to fall off. How are you alright? Ultron exclaimed in astonishment. This is something he finally managed to research. Under his control, thousands of sentinels are almost integrated into one, and all attacks are focused on one point. The power of that attack should be increased by at least 1,000 times. Theoretically speaking, even the strongest mutant Charles would not be able to resist this powerful mental attack. But Zufu just lowered his head slightly, and then he was fine? Ultron wanted to curse. This is an attack that directly affects the soul. Who else besides robots like them can resist it? But Zufu just blocked it and he looked unscathed. How is this possible? Ultron was puzzled. Zufu just smiled indifferently. Your attack is indeed very powerful. If it were a little stronger, I'm afraid few people could block it. Not bad, really not bad. You used resonance, right? Thousands of sentinels resonate, enough to amplify the attack by thousands of times. Zufu savored it carefully. Just like the butterfly effect. A small butterfly flapping its wings in the east of Earth can form a hurricane on the back of Earth. Resonance is the same principle. Thousands of sentinels launch an attack using a special frequency, enough to make this attack thousands of times stronger. Otherwise, Zufu wouldn't have felt a sense of impact. Unfortunately, Zufu's soul has already undergone qualitative changes, and thousands of mental points have given him great resistance to mental attacks. In addition to Superman's powerful body, even existences like Ancient One would have a hard time launching a mental attack on him, not to mention a robot like Ultron. Seeing that he had spoken out the skills he was manipulating in a few words, Ultron's face showed a gloomy color like a human. Scarlet eyes emitted an incomparably eerie light. Impossible, there's no way you could have seen it so easily. Section 149. This is absolutely impossible. Ultron was still a little incredulous. Countless data streams flowed through Ultron's brain, and thousands of sentinel robots were linked together at this moment. This is the power of artificial intelligence. As long as there is enough computing power to support it, he can split into thousands, or even hundreds of millions. Adjusting the abilities of thousands of sentinel robots is just a piece of cake. This is also why Tony Stark is not as good as Ultron. He does not have this terrifying computing power. Under Ultron's manipulation, the artificial cells on the surface of thousands of sentinel robots emitted a strange energy. An invisible wave gathered and resonated in the air, and then formed an even more powerful wave, attacking Zufu. This kind of attack is powerful and effective. Even a powerful mutant like Professor X would probably be turned into an idiot in an instant under this terrifying attack. However, this terrifying attack did not hurt or itch Zufu at all. This time, Zufu didn't even react at all. This is impossible, Ultron exclaimed. This time, he used even more powerful power, which was more powerful and larger in scale than the previous secret attack. Why didn't Zufu react to this kind of attack instead? Nothing is impossible. If I were still hit by you after being prepared, I wouldn't be able to continue. I might as well go home and be an ordinary person. Zufu chuckled. He possesses Nabu's power and a Green Lantern ring. Could he not be able to block ordinary mental attacks? Even relying on Superman's body to withstand it wouldn't be difficult. Now that you've finished attacking, then it's my turn next. A glimmer of light flashed in Zufu's eyes, and the next second, he disappeared directly. Not good. Ultron immediately felt bad and manipulated the Sentinel robots to start dodging. Zhu Fu and the Sentinel disappeared together. It's not that they really disappeared, but that their speed was too fast, exceeding the extent visible to the naked eye. Except for Thor, who could still see a little afterimage. The other members of the Avengers were all dumbfounded, even Vision was no exception. The newly born Vision obviously hasn't adapted to his abilities and doesn't have much sense of existence yet. Is this still a human? This speed is too terrifying, right? Tony Stark couldn't help but groan as he watched the constantly exploding ground and the rising wind. Even the armor's high-speed camera still couldn't capture the traces of these people. If Zhu Fu wanted to attack him, he would definitely die. The parts on those incomparably hard Sentinel robots were all blown away. The scene was so violent. Zhu Fu even directly crushed every inch of material into powder with his enormous power. Under the action of this destructive power, even nanostructured robots would be completely destroyed by this terrifying power. Not to mention the robots controlled by Ultron. The battle between the two directly destroyed buildings within 1,000 meters of the city center. If the citizens hadn't seen the situation and ran to the edge of the city, this place would have become a living hell. Even so, the situation is still not optimistic. The city is still rising continuously. Tony Stark could see that Zhu Fu was very restrained in his actions, trying his best to protect the city. Otherwise, this place would have exploded long ago. Contact Nick Fury and save people quickly. Once this thing rises to a certain level, things will be troublesome. Tony Stark was constantly arranging. The battle on Zhu Fu's side had also reached a fever pitch. These Sentinels controlled by Ultron obviously possess Quicksilver's ability to transfer quickly and even had some kind of space teleportation ability. Their figures were very flexible. However, in the face of Zhu Fu's unreasonable speed, everything was just empty talk. Superman can compete with Flash in speed. Compared to speed, Quicksilver is obviously no match for Flash. Because Flash's speed force allows him to directly travel through time in the material world, even reaching the point of exceeding the speed of light. As for Quicksilver, he can even be shot to death by a machine gun. Although that was the result of his excessive physical exertion in saving the citizens of the entire city and his abilities not being fully developed. But the gap between the two is still very obvious. Under this terrifying speed gap, Zhu Fu directly dismantled 300 or 400 Sentinel robots. The number of Sentinels was directly reduced by more than half. After being destroyed by him, the structure of the Sentinel robots was completely destroyed, completely losing the possibility of repair. Enough. I've had enough. You damn mutant. Ultron's angry voice sounded. All the robots directly turned into a ghost-like form similar to being transparent. Zhu Fu's powerful attacks directly passed through their bodies. It was impossible to attack these things. Zhu Fu could only stop. Superman is indeed invincible. But he has not yet developed to the point where one punch can cause the five-dimensional world to revert time. Using power to touch the rules is at least an ability that Silver Superman has. Interesting. Is this also the ability of some mutant? Zhu Fu looked at Ultron with interest. According to reason, even Phantom Cat's ability can already be immune to most physical damage. Ultron is actually right to deal with him this way. If he really only had Superman's body, he would probably suffer a loss at this moment. Thermal Ray is actually some kind of physical ability. Haha, I knew you had no way. No one in this world is omniscient and omnipotent. You also have your own weaknesses. Section 150. Ultron opened his mouth a little excitedly. After fighting for so long, he finally gained the upper hand for once. Interesting. Do you think that I have no way to deal with you like this? I have to say, you are really too naive. Zhu Fu sneered, and the Green Lantern ring on his hand lit up. What he has mastered is not just Superman's body. I know, you may have a way, but you have no chance. Life annihilation equation. The mechanical voice rang from Ultron's mouth. Zhu Fu found that Sentinel robots had surrounded him at some point. Not just the ground. Even in the sky, there were traces of Sentinel robots. They looked at Zhu Fu with scarlet eyes, as if they hated him very much. As soon as Ultron's voice fell, Zhu Fu keenly noticed that a 100-meter building in the distance disappeared directly. It just disappeared so abruptly. It was as if some kind of power directly swallowed the building. The things around him were disappearing out of thin air. Zhu Fu's eyes flickered with amber-like light. What kind of ability is this, Lyses? Through his eyes, Zhu Fu could see. Everything around, whether it was soil, rocks, trees, metal, and other substances, was directly decomposed into the smallest atoms. This is the scale that can only be seen with a scanning electron microscope. But in Zhu Fu's eyes, it was as clear as fire. What a powerful destructive force. Life annihilation equation, it does fit the name somewhat. But I want to know, can this kind of attack cause harm to me? Before that, let's change the battlefield first. Zhu Fu saw a 1,000-meter-high mountain in the distance disappear out of thin air, and the material in it was decomposed, as if it had gone to another world. Zhu Fu frowned slightly, as if he had a slight sense of crisis. This thing can not only devour other substances, but also seems to increase the power of the attack. If this continues, Zhu Fu felt that this large area would be turned into nothingness, so he directly took action. 803 With a wave of his hand, a golden light appeared in the sky. In an instant, this golden light directly expanding to a circle of several kilometers and shrouded down on the ground. The bodies of the Avengers, Zhu Fu, and Ultron were all shrouded in this golden halo. This is nothing else. It is the legendary magic of camouflage, portal. A powerful magic that allows magicians' apprentices to appear at any point on Earth. Zhu Fu used magic to teleport them to the reflection of the real world, the mirror dimension. This magic is recorded in the Supreme Magic Book and is very advanced. But for Zhu Fu, who has mastered Nabu's power, it is not so difficult to master. Now using it has the right effect. As soon as he entered this space, Ultron's face changed, and the surrounding space seemed to become unstable. It was as if something transparent was hidden in the air, wanting to explode. What did you do? There was even a bit of horror in Ultron's eyes. The reason why he has been confident so far? That's because he is artificial intelligence. No matter how powerful Zhu Fu is, he can't destroy him, unless the network in the world disappears. But now, Ultron felt that his perception of the network had disappeared. It was as if he had arrived in a world without a network. The huge computing power provided to him also disappeared directly, and his manipulation of the life equation also seemed weak. This thing became very unstable, as if it was about to explode immediately. What exactly did you do? Ultron couldn't help but speak. He was quickly unable to maintain all of this. Just changed the battlefield. Let me see how powerful this thing is. Zhu Fu stretched out his hand and directly grabbed the Avengers to his side, with an extra layer of green shield around him. You are seeking your own death. We all will. Ultron's voice began to become intermittent. Then those robots began to disappear out of thin air. As if swallowed by some unknown existence, Zhu Fu watched them disappear with his own eyes. An invisible wave spread out around. This wave was very terrifying, and everything it encountered was disintegrating. Zhu Fu watched as the huge city under his feet was disintegrated and disappeared directly out of thin air. Even the air could not resist this terrifying power and was constantly being consumed. At the same time, he felt his willpower being consumed at a terrifying speed. This was the first time since he had the ability. In the constant persistence, this wave continued to spread around. After the wave spread completely, a huge circle covering an area of 5,000 kilometers had formed here, centered on Zhu Fu. The Avengers couldn't help but gasp. What kind of attack is this? Is this one country gone? How strong is Zhu Fu? This kind of attack won't work either? Chapter 87 Destruction is fine anywhere, but you can't destroy the fish pond. Subscription requested! Exclamation. What is the concept of thousands of kilometers in radius? There are many small countries in the world that do not have such a large land area. It would take an hour to drive from south to north. The original capital of Sokovia, including a large number of surrounding mountains, had directly disappeared.
Thanks for joining Fanfiction Reader. If you enjoyed it, hit subscribe and come back for more fan-made adventures.